Good afternoon, bringing this hearing to order. There is a gavel that is lost, so we're just going to have to do it that way. We're going to begin with the budget for Morgan State University, starting with Micah Richards with an analysis.
Good afternoon. My name is Micah Richards, and I want to thank the chair and the citizens of the great state of Maryland for allowing me to speak before you today. I will be presenting Morgan State's fiscal 27 budget analysis, and also want to thank Morgan State for their service and collaboration with this analysis report. Starting on page 1, the fiscal 27 budget increases by 6.3% to around $559 million compared to the fiscal 26 appropriation. On page 5 and 6 in Exhibit 1, from fiscal 21 to 25, the enrollment has increased in each year due to capital improvements on the campus and other reasons. The only concern is the first-time, full-time students declined by 1.9%, and transfer students declined by 0.6% from fiscal 24 to 25. Therefore, DLS requests for Morgan State to discuss the reasons for the decline in first-time, full-time, and transfer students enrollment. On page 6 and 7, Exhibit 2 shows the applications submitted and accepted are at its highest level in fiscal 25 compared to previous years. On page 7 and 8, Exhibit 3 shows in-state enrollment is the majority of the campus at 58% in fall 2025. However, over the last couple of years, the percentage of in-state enrollment compared to total enrollment has decreased to increase out-of-state enrollment so Morgan State can increase their revenue from their higher out-of-state tuition. On page 8 and 9, Exhibit 4 shows the second-year retention rate decreased by 0.8 percentage points from fiscal 22 to 23, and the third-year retention rate increased by 2.6 percentage points from fiscal 18 to 19. The Maryland Higher Education Commission has not posted updated data for the third-year retention rates from fiscal 20 to 22. Therefore, DLS requests for Morgan State to discuss their approach to retain students to increase the retention rate and how Morgan State will collaborate with the Maryland Higher Education Commission to get the retention rate data updated. On page 9 and 10, Exhibit 5 shows the 4-year graduation rate in fiscal 20 and 21 was the same at around 18%, and the 6-year graduation rate increased by 1 percentage point from fiscal 18 to 19. However, it is still much lower than in previous years. Therefore, DLS requests for Morgan State to discuss efforts to increase the 4- and 6-year graduation rates. On page 10 and 11, Exhibit 6 shows for the 2016 through 2017 academic year, non-Pell full-time transfer students had the highest 8-year graduation rate at 79%. On page 11 and 12, Exhibit 7 shows the average net price was 41% lower than the cost of attendance. On page 12 and 13, Exhibit 8 shows institutional aid increased by 2.7% from fiscal 24 to 25, and need-based aids comprised the majority of the dollars at 74%. On page 13 and 14, Exhibit 9 shows after graduating from Morgan State, a bachelor's in civil engineering has the lowest debt, bachelor's in electrical, electronics, and communication engineering has the highest earning, and a bachelor's in business administration had the highest number of graduates. Also on page 14, Morgan State has a deficiency for fiscal 26 to move around $946,000 from the Special Fund Higher Education Investment Fund to the General Fund due to lower than expected revenues. On page 14 through 16, Exhibit 10 shows Morgan State has lost around $959,000 in federal grants due to changes on the federal level. On page 17, DLS requests from Morgan State to provide an update on the use of the $50,000 from Section 21 of the fiscal 26 budget bill for an artificial intelligence needs assessment. On page 17 and 18, Exhibit 11, Morgan State's overall expenditures increased by $12.4 million from fiscal 25 to 26 due to enrollment increases and salary adjustments. Tuition and fee revenue reported for fiscal 26 is based on estimates from FAR 2024, and Morgan State projects that the actual amount at the close of fiscal 26 will be higher than the fiscal 25 amount due to increase in enrollment. DLS requests for Morgan State to comment on the planned timing for adjusting its expenditures and revenues based on changes in enrollment. On page 18 and 19, Exhibit 12, the fiscal 27 state operating funds increases by $5.4 million compared to fiscal 26. Around $232,000 is moved from the general fund to the special fund, Higher Education Investment Fund, contingent on the enactment of legislation pertaining to certain tax provisions in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. On page 20 in fiscal 27, allowance $28.2 million is included for the 5th year of funding under Chapter 41 HBCU settlement. $8.5 million is included in the dedicated purpose account to assist Morgan State's research centers to transition to energy resiliency and climate-related research. DLS requests for Morgan State to discuss the planned uses of these funds. On page 20 and 21, Exhibit 13 shows we project Morgan State will have around $430 million in revenue in fiscal 27. On page 22, Morgan State should discuss the progress made to fill their 196 vacant positions. On page 23 in FAR 25, Morgan State dissolved their partnership with Salud Education to create an osteopathic college of medicine. Furthermore, Morgan State still has aspirations to develop a medical school. Therefore, DLS requests for Morgan State to discuss next steps to become the 5th HBCU in the nation to have a medical school. On page 23 and 24, Morgan State submitted a report with a 5-step process to establish a task force to implement an initiative for the long-term development of East North Avenue in response to the requirement from the 2025 Joint Chairman's Report. The $250,000 in withheld general funds was approved to be released. On page 25, DLS requests for Morgan State to concur with the governor's allowance. Page 26 details the instructional faculty workload, the East North Avenue development, and the HBCU settlement funds reports were all submitted based on the request from the Joint Chairman's Report. This concludes my presentation, and I am available for any questions.
Any questions today for our analysts? Seeing none, thank you so much. We now welcome President Wilson and team. It's been so long since I've seen you.
It really has.
About 5 minutes.
Chair Smith and members of the committee, first of all, I would like to introduce 2 of my colleagues who are joining me this afternoon to respond to the questions that the analyst has asked us to respond to. To my right is our Senior Vice President for Enrollment Management and Student Success, Dr. Kara Turner. And to my left, David Lachina, who is our Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. First of all, we want to thank the analysts for a very thorough report. And we also want to thank Governor Moore and this committee and the legislature for your continued investment in Morgan State University. We have submitted a fairly extensive testimony, and of course, I just want to take about 5 to 6 minutes and give you a few highlights of that, and then we'll go straight to addressing the comments you've asked me to address. First, Morgan is entering its 159th year, and we are fast ascending as the next very high public research university in the state. Indeed, we are the only high research university presently, comprehensive high research public university in Maryland's largest city, Baltimore. You won't find a city of Baltimore size anywhere in the nation without a comprehensive, very high public research institution, and Morgan is traveling down that path fairly rapidly. As, of course, you heard from the analysts, we are at capacity at Morgan in terms of student enrollment at the residential level. We have 11,600 students. We expect that number to surpass 12,000 in the fall of this year. This past fall, that 11,600 or so students represented a 7.6% increase over the previous year. Also, we saw applications surge, as the analysts indicated, to over 25,000 applications this year, which represented about a 6% increase. We saw our graduate student enrollment for the very first time eclipse 2,000 students. And so from all angles, Morgan State University is growing exponentially. Also, when you look at the national publications and how Morgan is being ranked nationally, if you have a lot of regard for some of these publications, you can come away seeing that Morgan is very, very highly regarded nationally. So I'll start with U.S. News and World Report, where we are, of course, in the top 10 HBCUs in the country. There are 105 HBCUs. Morgan is in the top 10. But our takeaway here is that we are the third highest rated public HBCU in the country. Also, we are in the top 10 HBCUs by LinkedIn. Also, our business school was ranked 54 in the nation by Bloomberg Business Week. That's the first time that an HBCU business school has been ranked in that publication, and we outranked some of the household name business schools in this country. And on almost every level, you'll find our faculty and our students, they are winning. They are winning on these national and international stages. They come away with Innovators of the Year awards. Our students actually came in #1 in the Walt Disney Imagineering Design Competition. They also won the TEDCO Emerge HBCU Innovator of the Year. And then Bloomberg had a national HBCU trading challenge, made available $1 million to students and had them to execute investment strategies. And one of our students actually won that competition as well. And then they went up to Penn State and won that competition in terms of a sustainability strategy for the nation, and also then ventured on to MIT and won the MIT Hackathon Climate competition as well. So on all of these platforms, when our students enter them, they enter to win, because that's what it's all about. And we're very, very proud of that. We also have an incredible nursing program at Morgan, and over the last few years, our nursing students have been one of the highest scoring schools in the state in terms of our graduates passing the NCLEX. And so If we move from there to our faculty, we have several faculty at Morgan now who have been inducted into national academies, who are national fellows, and that's an indication that the faculty is, of course, embracing the tripartite mission of the institution. We have a faculty that is very much dedicated to effective teaching, to impactful research, and of course that is being noticed across the country. We also are taking the lead in AI. We have invested quite significantly in this field. I want to make sure that our students are being prepared for the work of the future and the future of work. We, of course, had a visit from NVIDIA, and they looked at our work and applauded us as being amongst the top few institutions in the nation that is developing an AI strategy that involves Morgan developing its own sovereign AI, that we are training AI on our own data, and we will interact with the LLMs, or the large language models, on our terms. We want to make sure our students are in that environment, once again, where they are understanding how to use this technology in a way that will make them competitive long-term. So moving along, a few more comments, and then we get straight to the questions. We also, at Morgan, as a rising research institution, are paying a lot of attention to patents. As original research coming out of the institution that, of course, is patentable, and as such, in 2023, we made the list of the top 100 universities in the country in terms of patents. That's the first time an HBCU has ever made that list. In context, I've been at Morgan for 16 years. When I arrived, Morgan had never in its history had a utility patent, never. And so we received our first patent in 2015, and from that point now, we have 49, and we expect to have about 10 to 15 more, perhaps within the next year or so. And so we are moving toward becoming that R1, a very high research institution. I can report to you that there's a 3-year criteria there. You have to meet it for 3 straight years, and it is, number one, research expenditures of $50 million a year, or an average of $50 million over 3 years, and at the same time, 70 PhDs each year, or an average of 70 PhDs over 3 years. Morgan has met that criteria 2 straight years, and we are trending toward meeting it in year 3. And if that is the case, you will be hearing publicly that Morgan would be joining the other 2 public institutions in this state as very high research institutions, that is College Park and UMBC. We also are in good financial health, relatively speaking. I should say relatively speaking perhaps twice, because everything is relative. So this is really the result of our latest financial audited statements. And so we received, once again, a clean audit. We have had clean financial audited statements now for, I guess, the last 15 years, with no significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses, and Moody's, Standard & Poor's, has affirmed A+ credit rating. So Morgan is number 1 amongst HBCUs in terms of our bond rating as well. And we have a significant economic impact, both within the city of Baltimore as well as in the state of Maryland. The latest economic impact study revealed that our economic impact is $1.5 billion, of which 850 million or so of that is in Baltimore City itself. So those are a few comments that I wanted to make. We have a testimony here that runs about 35 pages, so I won't go through any more of that. The analyst has asked us to respond to about 7 or 8 things. So the first is that you asked the president to comment on page 5, to discuss the reason for the decline in full-time, first-time enrollment and transfer students.
Thank you, Chair Smith and members of the committee. So our small decline in first-time freshmen is about 44 students totally. In context, over the past 5 years, we have doubled our freshman enrollment, so this is a very small decrease. And the reality is students are applying to more and more institutions, and so there's going to be more variability in which institution they select. So this is not at all a concern, it's not a trend. We've had, we're gonna see this. We're gonna see it go up a little bit and go down a little bit, but we think this is a very small number, and we do expect these types of fluctuations from year to year. The transfer decline was actually only 2 students. Again, definitely not a trend. We are doing great partnerships with our community colleges, doing a lot to strengthen the transfer pipeline. And again, you're going to see these small variables from year to year. Thank you.
And so the long and short of it is that this was intentional, and that we don't have the capacity in Morgan to increase our first-time, full-time class of residential students. And we, under Dr. Turner's leadership, we're trying to bring it in at level enrollment, and that's just missed it by about 40 students, as she indicated. I'm going to ask Dr. Turner as well to go on to comment number 2, page 8. The president should discuss MSU's approach to retain students to increase the retention rate, and how MSU will collaborate with MHEC to get the retention rate data updated.
Thank you again. So I think it's important to start this part of the discussion with, there's some discrepancies in the retention rate numbers that MHEC provides and our institutional numbers. And we believe that discrepancy is that MHEC uses Social Security numbers to track the students. That means if a student doesn't provide a Social Security number, which they do not have to do unless they're getting federal financial aid. So we have any number of students who don't have a Social Security number. And so we use institutional numbers. So every student has a unique institutional identifier. We are very confident in our numbers, and our numbers show that we have been above 70% this entire time, even through all the disruptions of the pandemic. And so I just think that's important to put out there. So while our rate certainly did decrease during the pandemic, as most institutions did, it was such a disruptive time academically, financially, health, mental health, et cetera. Our rate never decreased below 70%, and in fact, for fall 25, we're at 74.5%, I believe, which is our third highest rate in recorded history since 1999. This is how far back we have the records. Third highest rate and the highest since the pandemic. Having said that, though, we know we want to do better. Right? And so we do have a number of things we have begun to put into place. We've redesigned our academic advising model, doing very robust advisor training for both our professional and our faculty advisors. We've expanded our advising staff. We have totally revamped our summer orientation program for new students, our freshman orientation course, and our first year experience to really make sure we're providing the strongest foundation possible for our post-pandemic students. We've also enhanced academic support. We've built and are expanding a peer mentoring program. We've begun to use chatbots through a pilot program with a grant we have with Georgia State. And we have a partnership with Georgia State's National Institute for Student Success, and they really are the ones that have set the standard for how to move retention rates. So we have a very close partnership with them and are receiving grant money from them to work on increasing our rates, and we are confident that we will do so. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Moving on to the next comment. Comment 4, page 16, in calendar 2025, the federal government made significant reductions to grants and contracts. The president should discuss the impact of these reductions on MSU's research and activities. As the analyst noted, we have been really in historic territory with regard to research awards for the last 4 years on just a steady trajectory. Last year, June 30th of 2025, we ended the fiscal year with 104 million in research awards. The year before was 88 million, the year before 78 million. And so we now, midway through this year, are at $38 million. That's a huge fall off from where we were this time last year. Our VP for Research and Economic Development is Dr. Willie May, who was the Undersecretary of Commerce and Director of NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology. He and our team, we're on the Hill constantly making the case for greater investments in the unique research coming out of Morgan. We are optimistic that at least come June 30th this year, that we'll end with about $60 to $65 million perhaps in research awards, but that's a 40% decrease over where we were last year. I do want to take this opportunity to thank Governor Moore for including in his budget a one-time allocation to Morgan as well as to institutions within the USM for Morgan's shares, $8.5 million, and that will enable us to pick up some of the research that we were doing in the climate area, and we're still identifying those projects, but we are still not giving up on pushing that number back at some point to where it was. My last comment is I did share with you the Carnegie criteria. We are still on track, and we have enough research grants that are quote unquote in the hopper to ensure that the $50 million in research expenditures will indeed be attained. Next, comment 5, page 17, the President should provide an update on the use of the funds concerning the additional $50,000 located in the 2026 budget bill for Center for Equitable Artificial Intelligence Machine Learning Systems. You can see we have addressed that the $50,000 was used to conduct needs assessments for the Maryland State Department of Education in order to assist it in K-12 education in AI. The third paragraph there outlines that 2 such assessments have already been conducted and provided to the Maryland Department of Education. We have a very, very strong outreach to K-12 out of our Center for Equitable AI Machine Learning Systems, and have also developed learning materials to get the students hands-on experience in AI as well. The bottom line is that Morgan will continue supporting the Maryland State Department of Education and the stakeholder committee as requested, and we're going to build upon those assessments, and indeed, hopefully AI technologies will be adopted across the state in K-12. Next, comment 6, page 18, the President should comment on the planned timing for adjusting its expenditures and revenues based on changes in enrollment, and I'm going to turn to my left and toss this one to David Lacina.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So Morgan takes what we consider to be a fairly conservative approach to our budgeting model. And so the timing of how submitting the budgets is really based on the last year's actuals. And so we're a little bit behind in how some of that data rose through, but at the end of the day, it typically requires an adjustment. But given the dynamic nature of our growth, we feel the system has been working and we think it works well. So we're increasing the amendments to show additional revenues based on our growth. So again, we're continually looking to improve the process, but the timing of that is such that we use the last fiscal year's actuals to prepare for the budget, which is exactly what we did for this year's budget submission.
Next, comment 7, page 20, the President should discuss the planned use of these funds, referring to the $8.5 million allowance from the dedicated purpose account. I did address that earlier in my testimony. Comment 8, page 22, the President should detail the progress being made to fill our vacant positions. David Lacina.
So once again, so we feel we're making some progress in this area. I think if you recall, the last report, we were around 15% in our vacancies, and I think, the budget cuts that came in FY26 really kind of pushed us to look hard at our vacancies, and so we had a lot of cuts to our vacancies. In addition, as a result of the cuts, we've had a little bit of a slowdown in our hiring process. We're now looking to be much more intentional, much more strategic in our hiring, so it's a little bit harder for us to get some of these positions out the door. But having said that, a majority of these positions are actually being recruited, and there are some positions that is 9 months to 12 months before we can hire faculty. We also have some very key trade positions that are very difficult to find across the state, not just at Morgan, based on the salaries we're able to provide and the availability of trade positions. And so overall, I think it's just important to know that the recruiting process in institutional higher education is much different than a regular state agency, and we're doing all we can to improve and try and manage our vacancy list as best we can.
And then last, comment 9, page 23, the president should discuss MSU's next steps following the dissolution of the partnership. This was to bring into existence the medical school. I'll be brief. The university made a decision to move forward in planning a medical school outside of a for-profit collaboration. And when we started this process in 2018, the community was presenting itself to us much differently, and we formed a partnership with a for-profit entity. However, as this moved forward, if that had come to be, the tuition would have been north of $60,000 a year, which would have been counter to what we were really trying to do at Morgan, and that was to make an MD degree, or a DO at the time. We've shifted it to a MD, but to make that degree available at a much more reasonable tuition. After serious discussion about this and thoughtfulness, the Board of Regents and I decided to move in a different direction. Around that time, we received a grant of $1.75 million from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to enable us to step back and spend 18 months to put in place a strategic plan for a public nonprofit medical school offering the MD degree. We are very excited about that. We have a medical school planning committee now of about 20 people. We'll have 2 national advisors to that committee. We expect that the work to be done within the 18 months, and that we'll move forward and begin the process of establishing a public medical school at Morgan. We have put this on the radar of Governor Moore and some leaders in the legislature as well, and we are getting an embrace of this, and that there is such a tremendous need for more MDs in our state, and particularly MDs that will focus on family and primary care, which the Morgan School of Medicine will. Should things proceed in the direction that we are going, we could anticipate perhaps an entering class at Morgan perhaps in 2030 or 2031. With that, Chair Smith, in terms of the recommended actions, the university concurs with all of the recommended actions and, of course, with the governor's allowance. That is our testimony, and we stand ready to respond to any questions you have.
Are there any questions for President Wilson? Well, I have a question about the one thing you didn't talk about, which was the East North Avenue report. I definitely think that the activity we have seen on West North Avenue has been robust. We have a standalone budget hearing just about that. It's one of our budgets. And when you see that there's all this activity happening on West North Avenue and really nothing happening on East North Avenue, it seems like a tremendous opportunity for Morgan, now that it's coming to the old Lake Clifton site, to be economic anchor and catalysts in that area. I just wanted to put on the record that you have community leadership in Darley Park and in Cham that are very interested in activating the Harford Road corridor parallel to the site. And so I know it might not be foremost in the mind necessarily of the leadership at Morgan, but I think it would be a colossal missed opportunity because you haven't really had geographic proximity to the most distressed parts of our city. And by being located off of the Lake Clifton site, you are much closer to being a catalyst to a community that really needs that leadership, and you have my commitment to be helpful in any way possible. My only recommendation would be to include the planning staff at the city as part of any task force you put together, and quite frankly, just look at the membership of the West North Avenue Authority itself for inspiration for any sector omissions that could benefit further examination of this possibility. But thank you, thank you, thank you. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that former State Senator Joan Carter Conway of the 43rd District and the former chair of what we used to know as EHE and now know as I'm joking, Triple E, is with us. So thank you for being with us as well. Any other remarks or questions? Yes, Vice Chair Woollick.
Chair Smith, we are very excited about the opportunity for the East North Avenue project. And Kim McCalla, of course, has kind of looked at that, and we want to take it even further than what was originally proposed. But to start at North Avenue and then to go down North Avenue, and then come all the way down Harford Road past our School of Engineering. And so we have a consultant on board who is now helping us in the early stages to plan out the 59-acre Lake Clifton site. And then we're going to wrap that into that particular project. We also have reviewed fairly exhaustively the West North Avenue Development Corporation that I think Coppin is affiliated with, and we want to replicate that on the east side as well.
Thank you. I live in EBDI, but I'm very close to that. So.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for your testimony. We are very lucky here because we get to hear all the wonderful things that are happening at Morgan. It's my third year on this committee, and it's just wonderful to sort of get those updates. I'm wondering how those successes are being shared with potential applicants so that they know all the wonderful things that are happening at Morgan. And I say that because the enrolled rate for the last, I don't know, it's hard to see on the chart, but it looks like from 2021 to 2025 has been approximately the same, and there's so many fantastic things happening. So I'm just wondering, I know there's a lag time between what's happening and the public fully knowing all of that. So just wanted to understand what those efforts look like.
So let me kind of put a couple in front of you, and then I'll turn to Dr. Turner. We actually are very active in spaces where young people are on social media, on all of the social media platforms. And we actually have a full-time person at Morgan who is a social media journalist, I guess. And we basically take an opportunity to put in front of young people what these opportunities are and what Morgan education imbues you with, and to put that in language and in terms that they understand. That's the first. And then our unique academic degree programs. We have some of the most unique undergraduate academic degree programs in the state, and mechatronics engineering and cloud computing and embedded systems and cybersecurity management. And these programs are rapidly growing, some of the fastest growing programs at the institution. And so, we put those programs out there, make sure that young people are aware of them, especially given the lack of diversity in some of these fields. And Morgan is not running away from that. We realize that we have a responsibility to take very, very promising students, introduce them to fields that they may not be totally familiar with, especially younger, and then say, here's a path to get to Morgan in order to realize that dream. Dr. Turner, you want to add?
Sure, just our public relations team has just been fantastic about spreading the word about all the accomplishments and all that's going on at the university. And our admission officers, they recruit across the country. They're in, pretty much every high school in Maryland, all the college fairs. And again, we have recruiters who work across the country. And they know these stories and share them as well. And I think that's, one of the reasons have seen this great growth in applications and interest in the university.
Yeah, and we have students from over 42, 43 states, over 70 countries, and a lot of that also is word of mouth. You get, students coming from, we have students from Utah, and then they come and they go back and they talk about Morgan in ways that are compelling. And I want to go back just a bit to the fact that at one point we had about 600 students on campus from Saudi Arabia. When the Saudi Arabia Cultural Mission decided that they were going to send, much like Brazil, tens of thousands of students to the United States to get an undergraduate and a graduate education, where each institution was limited in the number of students that they would support. And I think our number was maybe about 150 or so. So these students were spread all over. And they went to areas within the United States where they were not welcomed. And the students at Morgan, apparently they were all in a network, and they started talking about this great experience that they were having at this place called Morgan State University in Baltimore. So that led to a massive transfer of students from the Midwest and from other institutions to Morgan, so much so that I had to go down to Washington and meet with the mission there, and they kind of slapped me on the hand a couple of times because we had exceeded the number so much, but it was not because of a strategic marketing. In this case, it was word of mouth. And so we do pay a lot of attention to that as well in terms of the quality of the student experience.
Thank you. No, I think you're having a lot of success in building attention because the graph is going all the way up. There are a lot of people applying, and so the word is getting out. The question is just how do you translate all of that interest into then enrollment, and that's just something. It has the enrollment hasn't. The graph doesn't look as striking, but so there is a ton of interest. The word is getting out. So I wonder if it's what would it take to kind of have that graph look the same? And it's just a question, just a thought, because I think there's probably a lot that's going to go into that. But I just wanted to raise it.
Well, more investments in the institution. So we are at capacity, which is what we're saying is that residentially we are at capacity. If not, we could easily be the second largest university in the state. We could easily, but the quality of the student experience would go down significantly because we don't have places to house them. We would have to hire tremendously more faculty and staff, and we don't have the resources to do that. I think that's the kind of...
Yeah, that definitely. But also, students are becoming ever more price sensitive. And even though, Morgan is very affordable, relatively speaking, cost is really a big deal for students, and particularly as the loan, changes are happening at the federal level. So, additional aid would also help, and we are very, we give a lot of money, and you all have been very generous in giving institutional aid, but that really is a consideration in terms of where students end up going.
Thank you. Those are very clear points. Appreciate it.
Delegate Tolles.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. really have questions, just a couple comments. So thank you. Well, first, let's start with the student loan, and I've been saying this to every university that come through because we know based off the changes at the federal government, and we talked about it before, so you already know about it. Dr. Wilson talked about it last time he was here, so stay tuned. Hopefully, we can have some good news, depending on what happens this session. We're trying to entice students to come here, and then once they graduate from your fine institution, they can come work for the state of Maryland. But I just wanted to, and I've said this to you, privately as well, Dr. Wilson, I just want to commend you on your, your commitment to Morgan State University. I see you everywhere advocating, championing, just being a rock star for the university. I think at the level, at the presidency level, to have you out there, it says so much. I have students in my district in Prince George's County that want to go to Morgan State University because of the great things that they're seeing happening at Morgan State. So it's all over the state, beyond the state, the work that you're doing. And you and your team, I thank your team as well, because I know you cannot do this great work alone. So I thank your team as well for really just, amping up Morgan and just the ability for an HBCU to reach its full potential. And with that, I want to, I just look forward to having an update once the 18-month report is completed for the medical school. I am so excited for Morgan State and that opportunity because we know, again, what's happening at the federal level with our healthcare. And to have, an HBCU in our state that's going to be a medical school, we know that you will be able to focus on issues around diversity care and the issues that we see in our hospital system, particularly with, pregnant women and, the lack of empathy in our hospitals that's, happening across the country. So just thank you for your work, and I look forward to having that report in the next 18 months.
Thank you very much, Delegate Tolles. And let me just endorse the fact that what you're seeing at Morgan is absolutely the result of a lot of hands. So I have a very, very strong, highly skilled, extraordinarily dedicated and committed team at Morgan, and you've heard two people on that team today. And our faculty is just stunningly brilliant. They really embrace the mission of the institution at the core. And when you have those things, leadership at the institution is not as difficult as it could be if you did not have those things. And so that's sort of what I wanted to make sure that I was on the record as saying. Absolutely. And we're looking forward to the medical school as well. We think we can bring the tuition in at about half the cost of the private medical schools. And this will be the first medical school at a public HBCU, the first one.
Oh, wonderful. I'm excited for the state, Madam Chair. Thank you, President Wilson, with, UMES and the veterinary program, and with your medical school, with the medical school at Morgan State on the horizon. Watch out. So thank you.
We love a supportive TERP, don't we? We love you. Thank you so much, President Wilson, and your whole team. That concludes the budget hearing for Morgan State.
Thank you very much.
So much. We will now be followed by Baltimore Community College and begin with Budget Analyst David Propert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Beginning on page 1, compared to the fiscal 2026 working appropriation, the fiscal 27 budget for Baltimore City Community College, or BCCC, decreases by $8.9 million, or 9.3%, to $86.7 million. This year-over-year decline is driven by a one-time $9 million pay-go appropriation supported by the institution's fund balance from fiscal 26. Moving to Exhibit 1 on page 5, Total enrollment declined by 27.9%, or 1,371 students from fall 2019 to 2022, driven by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, from fall 2022 to fall 2024, enrollment grew by 23.7%, or 837 students. Then, in fall 25, enrollment declined by 4.1%, or 179 students. In an effort to increase enrollment, the college reported that its recruitment zones were reorganized into 4 areas. The president should discuss the impacts of the reorganized recruitment efforts. Exhibit 2 on page 6 displays that from fall 2016 to 2019, at least 97% of tested entrants required remediation in math, and at least 85% required remediation in English or reading. Then there is a steep decline in fall 2020, and BCCC reports this large decline was due to measuring remediation differently during virtual learning that occurred during the pandemic. Prior to online learning in fall 2020, the most common remediation measure was performed in person using the AccuPlacer placement test. Once online learning began in fall 2020, the college used a variety of methods to determine a fall entrance remediation status, including SAT and ACT test scores, high school transcripts, and alternative placement exams conducted online. As the AccuPlacer placement test resumed being the primary method to determine remediation needs in fall 2022, the percentage of students requiring remediation in both subjects increased. In fall 23 and 24, remediation rates remain lower than historical levels seen from fall 2016 to 2019. Exhibit 3 on page 7 displays the successful persister rates for college-ready students and developmental completers. A successful persister is a student who is a first-time fall entrant who falls into at least one of the following categories: attempted 18 or more credit hours during their first 2 years, graduated with an associate degree or certificate and/or transferred, earned at least 30 credits with a cumulative GPA of 2.0 or higher within 4 years after entry, or they were still enrolled after 4 years. Students who completed developmental courses have historically had higher persister rates than college-ready students at BCCC, but this changed with the 2018 cohort as college-ready students persisted at a higher rate. College-ready students also persisted at a higher rate in the 2019 cohort, but developmental completers eclipsed them by 4 percentage points in the 2020 cohort. Continuing to page 8, Exhibit 4 shows developmental completers and developmental non-completers in the 2020 cohort increased their persister rates compared to the 2019 cohort, while college-ready students in the 2020 cohort persisted at just 1 percentage point less. The aforementioned shift from conducting primarily in-person AccuPlacer placement tests in fall 2019 to new methods in fall 2020 explains the shift in proportions between each segment year over year. In fall 2019, only 5.3% of the cohort was college-ready, whereas 46.2% were deemed college-ready in the 2020 cohort. In fall 2019, 61.6% of the cohort were developmental completers, but only 33.5% were developmental completers in the 2020 cohort. Additionally, 33.1% of the 2019 cohort were developmental non-completers, but only 20.3% were developmental non-completers in the fall 2020 cohort. Considering much less of the 2020 cohort was proportionally placed into developmental courses due to the pandemic-era change in measurement, the percentage of college-ready persisters is notable because many more students were in that segment than usual. Exhibit 5 on page 9 shows the changes in unrestricted funds by program in the 2025 actual and fiscal 26 working appropriations. Notable changes include an increase of $4.8 million, or 28.1%, in instruction, which BCCC attributes to faculty increments, promotions, and cost of living adjustments, along with contracts and grants for instructional activity. Academic support increases by $2.1 million, or 37.7%, which the college attributes to reaccreditation processes for academic programs, attending conferences, program approval costs for MHEC, customized developmental education courses, and escalations built into existing contracts. The president should discuss the specific contract and grant activities that have increased in instruction, as well as which programs are in the reaccreditation process. Exhibit 6 on page 11 shows BCCC's funding formula as it was calculated in fiscal 26 and in the 27 allowance. And the allowance does not include the contingent reduction, which will be discussed later. In fiscal 26, a full-time equivalent student, or FTES, count of 2,040 was reported by the college and used to calculate the formula, but this was the incomplete FTES count because it did not include eligible non-credit students. The number of FTEs that should have been used was 3,047. Nonetheless, the hold harmless provision would have been triggered either way. In the allowance, as displayed in the final line, general funds increased by 1.9%, or about $902,000, which again does not account for the contingent reduction, which will be covered soon. Exhibit 7 on page 12 displays how much of the college's funding has been comprised of hold harmless funds since fiscal 2021. One thing to note is that the hold harmless level increased year to year several times due to statewide salary adjustments being budgeted directly within BCCC in some years, as opposed to being centrally budgeted in the Department of Budget and Management. In fiscal 2021, the hold harmless portion was 6% of total funding, which grew to 32% in fiscal 25. As FTES enrollment used in the calculation declined, the hold harmless portion became larger. FTES enrollment in fiscal 2025 grew by 16.1% year over year, and fiscal 2025 FTES enrollment is what fiscal 2027 funding is based on, which brings BCCC out of hold harmless for the first time since fiscal 2014. On to page 13 and the contingent reduction in the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act. Under current law, BCCC's per FTS appropriation must be at least 68.5% of the per FTS appropriation made to selected four-year public institutions. The BRFA of 2026, as introduced, includes a provision to lower this rate by 1 percentage point to 67.5% beginning in fiscal 2027, which would reduce BCCC's appropriation by about $714,000 in fiscal 27. As shown in Exhibit 8. Fiscal 2028 and onward are forecasted based on several assumptions listed in the text. The total estimated decrease in funding for the period shown is $3.7 million due to the contingent formula change. Exhibit 9 on page 14 shows state support per FTES from fiscal 2021 to the fiscal 27 allowance, and the level in fiscal 27 if the provision in the BRFA is adopted. State support per FTES increased each year from fiscal 21 to 25 as the FTES enrollment used in the formula calculation declined. Fiscal 25 and 26 also display in orange the state funding per FTES previously reported in prior analyses based on the incomplete FTES count. After peaking in fiscal 2025, state support per FTES decreased in consecutive years as enrollment increased. The BRFA provision would have state funding per FTES of $13,309, which is $518 less per FTES than under current law. Exhibit 10 on page 15 displays the proposed budget. After accounting for the contingent reduction, general funds increased by 0.4%, or about $188,000. Excluding the one-time PAYGO funds for deferred maintenance in fiscal 26, total funds increased by about $150,000, or 0.2%, in the fiscal 2027 adjusted allowance. The President should discuss the source and uses of the $1 million in state special funds included in the restricted fund appropriation. Page 16 contains personnel data for the college, which had a 28.83% vacancy rate as of December 31st, 2025. The President should comment on the continued high vacancy rate, efforts to reduce vacant positions, and the effect that the vacancies are having on the college's ability to meet its goals. Exhibit 11 on page 18 shows that the number of applications for the Mayor's Scholars Program, or MSP, has increased substantially in the last 3 years shown relative to the first 3 years. Despite this increase in applications, there has been significantly less enrollment in the Summer Bridge program, which has led to a much lower yield rate, and the yield rate is the number of enrollments divided by the number of applicants. The President should discuss why, despite higher than historical levels of applications in the 2022 to 2024 cohorts, only a small percentage of applicants enrolled in the Summer Bridge program. Exhibit 12 on page 19 shows the fall cohort size among Summer Bridge program completers and the percentage who then enrolled for a second year. The percentage of students who enrolled for a second year declined from 59% in fall 2022 to 41% in fall 2023, which is the second lowest rate for the period shown. Exhibit 13 on page 20 shows each MSP cohort's total financial aid amount and the average award for their first year. The 2019 cohort had the most students and most total aid, while the 2022 cohort had the fewest students and the lowest total aid for the period shown. From the 2020 to the 2023 cohort, the average award more than tripled in size. The average award then decreased by 59% in the fall 2024 cohort, which was due to Baltimore City phasing out its funding for the MSP. BCCC has reported it will use fund balance, federal and state grants, and institutional funding to continue the program, along with looking into philanthropic sources. The President should comment on developments to fund the MSP from other sources, and DLS recommends adopting committee narrative requesting a report on enrollment and the MSP. And with that, I conclude my presentation. I can take any questions.
Thank you so much for your analysis. Are there any questions? Seeing none, welcoming Dr. McCurdy and team.
Good afternoon. Chair Smith, Vice Chair Rolock, members of the subcommittee, it's our pleasure. For the record, I'm Deborah McCurdy, President of Baltimore City Community College. I'm joined by colleagues, Ms. Donna Thomas, the Interim VP for Student Affairs, Michael Thomas, they're not related, Vice President for Workforce Development, Continuing Education, he oversees as well the facilities. Eileen Hawkins, Director of Institutional Research, and Mr. Brandon Cohen, Director of Budgets, Chief Budget Officer at the institution. Thank you for this opportunity to provide the testimony in support of the Governor Moore Miller Vision and State Plan, and we're just very pleased to be here. We thank the committee again for their continued support. Also, we're thanking DLS analyst David Proppard. He's been with us now for about a year, so we're very pleased to continue that engagement for his support and partnership, and as he's assisted us in moving forward on so many of the campus initiatives as well. Since I joined the college in 2019, we've continued to demonstrate resilience through realignment, and most are well aware that the college underwent realignment mandates from the legislature in 2018, and that has continued. The college's student-first model directly ties to two of the governor's priorities, setting Maryland students up for success and connecting Marylanders to jobs. We know where BCCC sits in the heart of Baltimore as an urban institution. We know that 1 in 8 Maryland children live in poverty within Baltimore City and Prince George's County, accounting for about 40%. We're committed to driving this number down. Nearly 72% of our credit students live in the city and 19% in Baltimore County, with 97% of first-time students addressed or recommended into developmental coursework, which puts a tremendous emphasis on the resources that are needed just to make certain that students entering can also remain and be successful. Additional highlights, we continue with our economic impact of about $270 some odd million that goes directly into the Baltimore City economy. Our operations spending is about $48 million. We have student spending annually at about 2.8, almost 3 million. Alumni spending is about 224 plus million, with many of our graduates who remain in the greater Baltimore area as well. I'm pleased to say that the college is continuing to move forward with the 12 realignment tasks that were mandated by this legislature some time ago. When we look at fiscal year 2025, what we saw in terms of enrollment, and it's all part of the realignment, you're going to hear a little bit more about the realignment and about the enrollment increases. The total annual head count went from 9,100 to about 10,500, an increase of about 16.5%. That's an annual increase for both credit and non-credit, as we project to move our enrollments well beyond the pre-pandemic level. Student first model, we have held our tuition for the last 8 years at the same level at $110 per credit hour for all Maryland residents. We look at realignment and tasks about our pathway to success with Baltimore City Public Schools, and we're continuing to partner with them as well, looking at developmental English, developmental math, and we also asked that they consider partnering with us on developmental science for our students. The numbers of students coming out of Baltimore City Public Schools who would need to pass through BCCC is in the thousands, and that's where a lot of our effort right now is going in terms of making that mark to get these students through, to develop the coursework that would then be able to deliver a different level of success to these students. Realignment process is ongoing at the institution, so it would be certainly a misnomer not for us to address those tasks Very quickly, on the capital improvement side and the planning, the college has come certainly a far way. With the library, we're in final stages of planning and hopefully moving that into the bid process certainly shortly. That's the library, Learning Commons. Nursing is next, as well as we rebuild the nursing as well as the wellness center. Many of these buildings have not had any marked improvement since about their inception, 1965, and they still stand as they are, and we're moving forward with 2 major properties as well. We've done the assessment of other properties in terms of those that were leased or owned, and moving forward with making a difference there as well. We're taking on articulation agreements with our 4-year partners as well. We have improved and brought into line the new ERP system, which is the technology backbone of the institution. At some $3 to $4 million, we are still advancing with our vendor partner as well to continue to allow the institution to evolve to new levels of technology predominance. Our applications for onboarding and orientation, as you'll hear a little bit more about, the improvement for our vacancy rates as well. Part of that was how we had to reach out to the community to alert people that what was at the institution, and once they arrived at the institution, improving the onboarding and the orientation as well. Our branding continues to be raised to new levels with new website, new marketing, and seals and logos and social media and everything that we have to do to touch in the greater community to let them know that we continue to be a part of the greater community. Strategic planning, as we grow the strategic plan and expand, and we focused on 3 elements for delivering on our promise to the communities that we serve, aligning the strengths that we bring from the institution, and then expanding our reach. And finally, on task 10, in terms of what we've done with, again, the leasing and the properties, and I think everyone is well aware that downtown site, the old Bard building is finally down. That is now a totally green site, and certainly thanks to the governor's office and President of the Senate, Ferguson, some time ago, who appropriated the money to make that happen. That site, as we begin to go forward with the planning and we look at expanding on health sciences, the criminal justice area, the STEM areas, the cybersecurity, hospitality management, sports management, all of that is a part of that greater vision for what this property should evolve into in downtown Baltimore, and then returning Baltimore City Community College back into a greater partner and a part of the downtown community as well. One of the points for clarification that I do want to make, I think our analyst touched on it as well, was that the eligible FTEs in the charts, the information that you have, the number is still incorrect. I know they have noted that, but in terms of looking at the total FTEs that should have been at 3,000 and something, but they had left out inadvertently last year the non-credit of over 1,000 FTEs. And I think in terms of the analysis that was done, that certainly that had some impact on the perception of the growth at the institution. Last, I'll conclude my comments and then go to the questions that we've been asked to respond to. I asked that the funding formula not be changed for Baltimore City. I'd like to thank Chairman Smith and the committee for their support in past years in terms of making certain that the college's appropriation was not changed last year. And this year we're finding, again, a recommendation to reduce the funding, which would reduce our baseline appropriation from 68.5 down to 67.5, and hence that reduction of 713,000 plus may sound like a smaller amount, but for an institution with our budget and the individuals who we serve, the reduced funding formula certainly would impact and threaten BCCC in conducting our workforce development aspects. Also, as we address workforce shortages, all of a sudden we are significantly down in operating money to begin to serve. It could impact our employees' salaries, increments, promotions, other needs of the college. In past years, we're very clear that BCCC has oftentimes endured the billing for and the costs for raising salaries, both on the increment and the cost of living side. This would really create a tremendous hardship as we look for the coming year and the continued growth, and coming up short by a significant amount, not as well the impact in terms of the formula funding and the appropriation where the college has set. And with that, Madam Chair, I can end my comments and move to the discussion points that were raised unless there's a question.
Are there any questions for Dr. McCurdy? Just want to highlight that we do have a new member of the subcommittee, Delegate Karen Tolles from Prince George's County. So just want to lift that up. Yeah.
Okay.
I do not have any particular questions. Anything you want to lift up?
All right. The first question, the president should discuss the impacts of the reorganized recruitment efforts, and we continue to build. And I know every year we come and we'll continue to promote the fact that the college is reorganizing, and that means, and realigning, that meant operational. It wasn't just a financial realignment, it was an operational and an organizational realignment. So much of the infrastructure, we continue to grow and to change in ways that will demonstrate more successful, more efficient, more effective operations, as well as directing this to the success of our students. And I'm going to ask our interim VP, Ms. Thomas, to talk about the recruitment efforts and what we're doing at the institution to begin to improve the infrastructure for recruitment.
Yes, thank you, Dr. McCurdy. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. As Dr. McCurdy mentioned, we continue to put together a comprehensive and adaptive enrollment strategy to respond to our shifting demographic trends. A few things I want to call out from our response that you have before you is that we are fully staffed within our Office of Admissions. We have new leadership with our new Assistant Dean of Admissions, and the college is definitely preparing for the Fall 26 upcoming semester, to where we will be also hosting an open house. With the intentional planning that is underway right now, we are putting together additional activities to be able to engage more with our community, as well as our high schools and organizations to continue to promote BCCC. We also continue to look at the data for our recruitment zones and identify those key key high schools in which we should be specifically targeting in order to tell our story and for those students to come to BCCC. One important thing to note is that we continue to partner with Baltimore City Public Schools for our dual enrollment program. As Dr. McCurdy mentioned earlier, we have developed our developmental courses, which definitely is a target for those students there at Baltimore City, where we know that a significant number of those students require that remedial support. Being able to go into those schools while they are still in high school and offer that developmental course will further align the students to be prepared after graduation, but also allow them the opportunity to take those courses while in high school, therefore increasing our enrollment as well in dual enrollment.
Okay. There are no questions. I'll go on to the next question. The president should discuss the specific contract and grant activities that have increased in instruction, as well as which programs are in the reaccreditation process. We've had a very busy last few years with our reaccreditation activities. I'm going to have both VP Thomas to talk a little bit about the grant activities as well. He sits in workforce development, where we're able to identify and secure many grants that impact some of our non-credit instruction, from CDL to warehousing, refugee worth activities and so forth, so you understand the impact of what has happened on the grant side for the institution. Certainly, there have been some decreases, and we're rebounding from the decreases through no fault of the college, but we're rebounding from some of those decreases as well. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the reaccreditation activities and what that means as well to the college. It's a tremendous impact on the instruction of the institution as we look at programs and courses that have to be expanded, as we look at faculty that have to be added, and the competitive nature of how they arrive at the institution as well. So VP Thomas.
Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon, Chairman Smith, committee members. You know, instruction serves as the core business of the college. So our operational expenses have increased year over year. As discussed previously, there have been many recruitment and retention initiatives to achieve enrollment goals. And as we achieve our enrollment goals, then, you know, that kind of results in additional expenses as well. Since the number of credit courses selections have increased, additional costs will increase as well. Due to COVID-19, many of our programs in workforce development, continuing education, we had to pause. We could only offer those in person, and we could not switch to virtual. So as a result, our construction program, our CDL program, warehousing, refugee youth asylees program, and the majority, pretty much the majority of our community-based programs where we go into the community and we offer programming, we had to put those on pause when we could not switch those to virtual as well. So I'm pleased to say that these programs are fully operational. As instruction costs increase, you know, we seek out opportunities for our students. Our goal for our workforce community is to have students come in at no cost, where we can train our students, they earn an industry credential, and then we help them by placing them in the workforce as well. And so new grants that we've been able to achieve is we partner with MHEC on the Maryland Promise Scholarship. That's a grant that's for both credit and non-credit. And we've been able to maximize usage of that grant by offering our residents free tuition. And we, last year, we were able to offer over $468,000 to our students. We also partner with the Department of Human Services with the SNAP program. With the SNAP program, we were able to write, and we received a grant for $1 million. We used that $1 million to offer training to those who receive benefits from SNAP into our workforce programs. And finally, we received an additional grant from the Department of Labor of about $88,000. And the purpose of that was for us to offer adult basic education programming and language services for English language learners. That's important for Baltimore because Baltimore does have a high rate of individuals who have not completed high school. And even though we say our adult basic education program, people think of GED, we actually offer a high school diploma.
As well, when we think about the programs and how our programs are supported, what our external entities think of and how they evaluate our academic programs. And as I've said, this is a extremely active time for the college with so much going on, our reaccreditations as well. I'm going to have Ms. Hawkins, who's over institutional research and also partners with the VP for Institutional Effectiveness regarding all of our reaccreditation activities as well. So you'll have a sense of the difference today regarding our reaccreditation efforts and, again, how far the institution has come and being successful with our reaccreditation efforts as well. So Ms. Hawkins.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. McCurdy. Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McCurdy. Thank you for letting me know. Good afternoon. To give you an overview of where we stand with our institutional accreditation, the college hosted a very successful site visit with our institutional accreditor, the Middle States Commission on Higher Education, in spring of 2024. And we received word in November that we had full reaffirmation. Very successful visit, very successful report. Also in fall 24, we had a successful visit with the ACBSB, which offers accreditation for several of our business programs, including accounting, business administration, our business program that has concentrations in marketing and management, and computer information systems. We have annual reporting that's required for the ACBSB accreditation, and we have a site visit scheduled for that program, as well as for several of our individual programs in the School of Nursing and Health Professions. So we have several key healthcare professions: nursing, practical nursing, surgical technologist, dental hygiene, physical therapist assistant, health information technology. All of those have individual accreditations with annual reporting requirements, membership fees, and they all have site visits that are coming up in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, thank you. Question 3, the president should discuss the source and uses of the $1 million in state special funds included in the restricted fund appropriations. You're going to find this on in the analysis on page 15 and our response on page 8. In accordance with the Maryland Education Article 16-512, and the college's mission to maximize access and affordability for Baltimore City residents. This allocation of $1 million is provided by Baltimore City and has been provided for certainly the better part of a decade or so. The $1 million is broken down by $600,000 that goes to the general operating that supports student engagement, instructional support, institutional services, and another $400,000 that can support student scholarships, athletic scholarships, institutional scholarships. We've used part of that for the Mayor Scholars Program, as well as you'll hear a little bit more about that. Dual enrollment with Baltimore City Public Schools, the dual enrollment parallel program, which is non-Baltimore City Public Schools, private and homeschool students as well, and then completion support for students with current outstanding bills. It is not a significant amount of dollars, but the good news is that the majority of it does go to scholarships. We have moved part of the $600,000 as needed into the scholarship line as well for the students, and so it's not just the $400,000. We can take some liberties to move a greater portion of that into the scholarship funding. It's still not enough. Every student at Baltimore City Community College should be able to go to college without worrying about the funding source and scholarships. And we are having some ongoing new discussions now with the city of Baltimore regarding some additional support for scholarships as well. The fourth question is the president should comment on the continued high vacancy rate, efforts to reduce vacant positions, and the effect that the vacancies are having on the college's ability to meet its goals. I can tell you that we have been active. If you go online, you will see that these positions are advertised. Some have been advertised for some time. We are advertising our faculty vacancies. We just met yesterday with our nursing faculty, and they indicated that they needed 2. We said, no, I think you need 4. They're looking at bringing in success coaches, clinical coordinators, and so forth. The challenge is, where are we finding the populations? Everyone is struggling, certainly in higher education, with the same issues about the demographic that is out there. Nevertheless, we have filled the VP for Finance, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Information Officer, Deputy Chief, Director of Budgets, Director of Student Success. I think it's all in your report as well. So we have moved forward quite effectively with filling some of the positions. Unfortunately, there are times when we fill them, and as fast as you fill them, we may see something different. I can tell you there's a lot of poaching going on in higher education, in terms of moving people from one institution to another. And, well, it's not the most neighborly or collegial thing, but we may have to address a little bit more about poaching from other institutions as well. So we are going to continue to get these positions out. We can successfully say that certainly in the last year, we've seen the vacancy rate drop by 3+%. We're in interview stages. Every week we are interviewing people to make a difference at the institution. And so I can tell you they're online. The salaries are posted. The salaries have to be competitive, and so people can look to compare us to other institutions. Sometimes we're in the middle. Sometimes we're a little bit better than that, sometimes a little bit lower, but we're never at the bottom. And that is a significant difference in this institution. We've brought in a new neo.gov system that helps with the onboarding and the orientation infrastructure as well. It allows us to screen the applicants at a very quick pace as well. And so it's all a part of the technology infrastructure and continuing to move the college differently. Question 5 is the president should discuss why, despite higher than historical levels of applications in the 22 to 24 cohorts, only a small percentage of applicants enrolled in the summer bridge program. We're aware that we had some lower overall enrollments. I can say part of that too, I'm going to have Ms. Thomas talk about that, but again, part of that is that competitive nature in the summer. Remember the demographic that we serve. Many students are a big part of their family incomes, and coming to school in the summer when they're out for the summer, it's expected that they're going to also be big contributors to the family incomes as well. If we're not able to do that, I know we've worked closely with YouthWorks, it's still not enough for many of these students to make a difference to say, yes, I can come to a 6-week summer session. I'm giving up basically any earnings that I may have had for the summer. The trade-off is that you're advancing towards your degree, but it still is going to have an impact, an economic impact on the students and their families. So, Ms. Thomas, do you want to elaborate a little bit more about what we've done and why there was a lower yield this summer?
Absolutely, thank you for that. I do want to first just highlight in summer 2024, we did see a growth in the number of students that did yield. It was 214 students compared to the previous year where it was 180 students. So it was a slight increase, and I just think that's important to note. We are continuing with our recruitment efforts. And to piggyback on what Dr. McCurdy just shared, we did a conversation, I should say, with a number of students who applied to the MSP program to get their direct feedback as to why did you apply, but however did not actually enroll and attend the program. And some of the feedback that we received directly from them is that they had to pursue that full-time employment for the summer. That was a reality for them. And some of them did apply for the YouthWorks program and received approval for that, but it still was not enough to support them or their family or so forth. They also communicated that they had other family obligations, and out of that, they elected to defer their admissions for a subsequent term. It's important for us to also note that through our recruitment strategy that we are planning right now, we are planning to tell our story to our students, how this program benefits you to get a start for your college education, get your classes out the way, such as if you require any type of developmental courses, or even if you're a student where you can come in and get your English out the way or so forth. That is the purpose of the program, as well as providing those extracurricular activities for students as well. While we are there to service the students to make sure that they're coming in the summer to get a head start, they also want to have that extracurricular feel to it as well. We are planning right now a MSP College Fair that is actually going to be held on our campus on March the 6th, the 7th, and then we'll have a virtual one on the 11th. The goal of this is to create a one-stop shop to where students can come on campus and be able to complete the application, get YouthWorks support as well, complete their FAFSA, as well as engage with the college and learn more about the program. And we will continue our partnerships with visiting every high school in the state, in Baltimore City, not the state. We're not there yet, but within Baltimore City to be able to make sure that they are definitely aware and informed of how this program benefits them and provides that support. Thank you.
Absolutely. And please know that MSP really does represent a large part of the incoming freshman class for BCCC. Dual enrollment, as we prepare students coming through, taking courses while they're in high school and BCCC at the same time. When we move them from dual enrollment, you want to move them as they graduate directly into the MSP program. So that summer bridge program is critical because that is that first step for many. And we have others who are coming through as a part of the freshman class, but the MSP program is a large part of the incoming freshman class for BCCC. Last question is 6. The president should comment on the development of funds for MSP from other sources as well. And that is exactly what our task has been to do, is we're looking at likely some renaming opportunities. We're looking at securing funding through philanthropic sources as well, including Baltimore City Community College Foundation, the corporate and individual contributions as well, and having those discussions beginning discussions with Baltimore City. That would make a huge difference. If every student coming from the city, we can take care of others, but if we can begin to really promote that every student coming from Baltimore City Public Schools, which is a majority of our students, have a ride to get through their first 2 years or through a certificate program, it's going to make a tremendous difference. And that's a different discussion that has to happen. And it's great to have foundation and philanthropic support and so forth. And yes, we're reaching out to those entities as well, but we also have to look for the state support for higher education and for these students. And those are the conversations that Ms. Thomas and I are now beginning to engage, because I think the alert and alarm also went off with Baltimore City when they realized that there was a drop. And part of that as well is that in the past, they had provided some additional funding for Mayor Scholars, and that funding began to cease, and we're now in discussions about how to put that funding back in place. So when the funding from the city, particularly for Mayor Scholars, began to dry up, Baltimore City Community College picked up the tab, and that's huge. Some of that then ended up being passed back to the students, but we picked up a big portion, and now we're in discussion now because it has really risen to a different level regarding these students, especially students coming from the Latino community as well, as a big part of our demographic, and how we're going to serve these students, because the alternative is, as we said at the table a few weeks ago, is students are just saying, I won't go, and that's not good enough. So we are looking for that central support, because that's what we should have. And I can assure you that these are active engagements that we are having. Finally, the recommendation. There is a recommendation, and the college accepts the recommended action, which involved enrollment in the Mayor Scholars Program, that we would continue to provide the support for enrollment at the institution and the Mayor Scholars Program as well. There has to be something very special about Mayor Scholars for the legislature to continue to ask us to report on a program, on Mayor Scholars. They're not just saying enrollment, but they have singled out every year Mayor Scholars. Up until about a year ago, we were reporting separately on Mayor Scholars. So every year, we provided the legislature with a separate report for Mayor Scholars, and then a separate report for enrollment. We then came forward, and I sat before this legislature and asked if they would consider that we do one report, because much of the data overlapped, and that was agreed to as well. So now we're doing one report, enrollment and Mayor Scholars together. That report for the year went in December 2025. It's already submitted, and we expect our next report for Mayor Scholars and enrollment will be submitted as well to the Joint Chair Committee in December of 2026. So I want to thank the committee. Again, we're open for any questions. We appreciate coming here every year, and anytime we could come and talk about the college in ways that we can continue to make a difference. But I can tell you, in the years that I've been here, you've made a difference in the support that you have provided for us, certainly on the operating side. And I know next month we'll be talking about capital, and there's a difference there too. So thank you, Madam Chair and committee.
Thank you, Dr. McCurdy. Any questions? The only thing, it's not as much a question, I guess it's part question, part comment. In terms of the mayoral fellows kind of funding streams and kind of looking at potential philanthropic support, something that I don't ever see mentioned as often is that there's a difference between philanthropy helping and the private sector actually stepping in. But it seems like they're always omitted. It's always government funding and philanthropy, but never what's the private sector going to contribute, because the end goal is for these young people to be productive members of, generally, if not the government, the private sector. And I know we have great needs around healthcare and great needs that y'all are helping to fill, right? I'm wondering, has there been any discussion around how there could be more involvement from a funding perspective with the Mayoral Fellows Program and maybe target private sector funding?
Yes, and thank you for the question. And overall, I think our target has been in the past a lot on the health sciences, because we are so focused on the health sciences, and that's why in the report we began to focus in on more of the philanthropic, the foundation entities that are there. Many of the public sector have within their missions, they must provide community support, and it's already written in. And it is for the institutions taking an outreach. We're having discussions now. If you'd sat with us this week, last week, and prior, you would have heard the discussion on the grants and the outreach, looking at the various entities and looking at their mission and their mission to community support that allows us to go in and say, this is what we have, and is this going to fit, and are we going to be able to secure? I did the same thing in Ohio, and we were able to secure a great deal of community support because we quickly realized that all of them have a mission and they must contribute back to the communities where they sit and where they serve and where they secure, obviously, dollars to keep their companies going. So absolutely, that is part of what is here, that we would do that reach out as well. Yes.
Well, if I can be helpful, I would like to be helpful. And I'm thinking like very precise. It's like, hey, you need 20 nurses and we're training them, or you need 10 dental hygienists. Like, what commitments can we have? Because at the end of the day, we're in a time in the country where loyalty is low. And part of the reason why loyalty is low is because people don't feel loyalty from institutions, right? And so when people wonder why they can't keep people, they can't attract people, a lot of it is because whether it's a consumer or an employee, people don't feel that relationship that they felt of old when they felt developed in-house and really a commitment from a major employer. And so if I could be helpful in fostering any conversations around that yields targeted investment in this program, I'd be happy to be helpful there.
I thank you for that, and I think it'd be certainly welcome to have you come and talk more. We've talked in the past, and I think just looking in that direction so people are really understanding the whole idea about our organizations and their loyalty. I was talking to one of our large companies, and they were talking about the same thing, about the loyalties and how do they begin to make a change, and they were moving toward doing more internally. And so that when people came, some of us grew up where people went and they stayed for years or decades. It's a new day, it's a new culture. But you want people to come, and while they're there, to feel connected to the institution and to want to contribute to the institution, whether it's service or in some other ways, and that becomes a big part of it. Once they start selling the institution, it's easy for us to go out publicly and begin to draw on the resources that are there. And many will say, we've had resources, we're waiting for somebody to come and ask us for the delivery of those resources. And I appreciate what you're saying and fully support that and agree with that.
Thank you for you and your team. No one does anything alone.
Absolutely.
You've had a huge task placed upon you, a global pandemic, and yet you do it all with a smile. So thank you for all that you do. And that ends the, oh, you didn't have anything, right? Okay, and that ends the budget hearing for Baltimore Community College. And I do, not the budget hearing, but the testimony from the panel. We do have some witnesses. If you don't mind, we need to make some room here for a few other witnesses. Is Ricardo Feldman here?
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Ricardo Feldman? Okay. Is Nina Kutnewski here? Hi. Is Todd Reynolds here? Oh, there you are. I didn't see you there. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, and Angelique Cook-Hayes? Oh, there you are. Very good. Please come forward. Well, you're there first, so you get to talk.
Thank you.
You'll have 2 minutes.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Nina Koneski, President of ASME Local 1870 at Baltimore City Community College. I have worked at the college for 20 years, and I am here today to urge you not to reduce funding for Maryland's community colleges. At BCCC, frontline staff wages are not keeping pace with the rising cost of living. Employees are experiencing dramatic increases in everyday expenses, including utilities and groceries. My own monthly bill from Baltimore Gas and Electric increased from approximately $250 to nearly $700. Many of our members are facing similar financial strain while continuing to serve students every day. More than 1/4 of Baltimore City Community College's workforce consists of contractual employees who perform ongoing operational work but do not receive state health care, retirement contributions, or the stability afforded to permanent employees. Heavy reliance on contractual staffing creates workforce instability that ultimately impacts students. Employees also need greater transparency regarding how compensation structures tied to state workforce standards are administered so they can clearly understand their pay progression within the system. Community colleges serve working families, first-generation students, and individuals seeking workforce development. Workforce instability and stagnant wages undermine institutional strength at a time when Maryland communities rely heavily on accessible higher education. We respectfully ask that the state protect funding for Maryland's community colleges and support policies that promote workforce stability and transparency. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Smith, Vice Chair Wallach, and members of the Education and Economic Development Subcommittee. My name is Angelique Cook-Hayes, and I'm the president of United Academics of Maryland Community Colleges, which is an affiliate of the American Federation of Teachers of Maryland. I'm also an associate professor of English and criminal justice at Baltimore City Community College, where I have been a faculty member for more than 13 years. I am asking that the subcommittee amend the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act to completely restore state funding for BCCC, moving back to its established 68.5%. You have my written testimony, so allow me to highlight a few points. The college is already having a difficult time providing education services with the levels of funding it currently receives. In my classrooms, for examples, I have had inconsistent working technology for the past 3 years. This makes my classroom instruction difficult because I cannot properly demonstrate how to navigate the assignments that need to be completed by my students. Therefore, it is crucial that the college provides technology which gives our students the opportunities that they need to be successful and competitive. Unfortunately, the state budget through the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act includes a structural cut to the way the state funds BCCC. And this cut will make these challenges facing the school even worse. Also, while other community colleges are on average seeing a 3% increase in funding from the state, BCCC, which is completely state-funded, is only seeing a net increase of 0.4%. This is especially unfair to BCCC because we do not have the other revenue sources that the county community colleges have. And our students, who include many low-income and first-generation students, are facing vastly different challenges than students at the other community colleges are facing. We do not want our students to fall further behind their county peers. For these reasons, I again call on the Budget Committee to amend the state budget and restore full funding from the state to BCCC. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Delegate Tolles, hello. My name is Todd Reynolds. I'm the political coordinator of the American Federation of Teachers in Maryland. AFT Maryland is the state federation for a number of K-12 employee unions, a number of county, city, state employee unions. We also represent, as President Cook has mentioned, a number of community college faculty throughout the state. I think 8 community colleges, including Prince George's County, BCCC, CCBC. We represent Howard, Frederick, Montgomery, Chesapeake, and I think Hagerstown. That might be all 8.
And Hagerstown, yeah.
We're here to call on the committee to restore full funding, full statutory funding for BCCC to the 68.5% per FTEs at the 4 years. Generally speaking, this proposed cut, while it might seem like a drop in the bucket of only 1%, that's cumulative. That's moving every year moving forward, and this is causing the school, the staff, to do more with less. We ask our community colleges at every community college to play a role in the success of the blueprint with dual enrollments, but also educating the future workforce, both teachers, and we ask them to educate folks for their careers. We have a whole number of apprenticeship programs, and we're really asking our community colleges to do more and to cut the funding at a lot of these institutions, including BCCC, kind of kneecaps those programs. I do want to emphasize that the college, and I think Professor Cook has mentioned this, the college is not funded the same way that the other community colleges are. BCC is not included in the CADE funding formula. We'll talk about that next week here, and does not have a funding model that can mitigate reductions in state aid as other colleges can. Other community colleges in Maryland can turn to their local counties to help them offset any reductions in state aid. BCCC does not have that luxury, and so we are asking that the state restore full funding to Baltimore City Community College. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of your testimony. Any questions, Delegate Tolles?
Thank you. No, Madam Chair, I appreciate the comments from, particularly, I think this is AFSCME here.
Yes.
All right, I used to work for AFSCME, so I got a lot of love for you all and appreciate you all, what you used to do. But yeah, I'm just, I leave Baltimore City to Madam Chair, and I'll, look at a deeper dive into Prince George's County Community College. But I appreciate the comments about the college and, staying with all of our community colleges. I think it's really critical right now to support our community colleges. I'm not saying anything about funding. I'm just saying I appreciate you all because a lot of our young folks coming from high school have to start at the community college just because it's more affordable than starting off at a 4-year and then transferring. So I'm just listening and taking it all in and look to do a deeper dive later. So thank you for your testimony. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Thank you to the witnesses today. Now this concludes the budget hearing for Baltimore
Thank you all.
Community.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next budget we'll hear is the State Lottery and Gaming Control Agency, and we'll first hear from Elizabeth Weibel, analyst.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The fiscal 2027 allowance for the Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Agency, or MLGCA, increases by $2 million, or about 1.5%, to a total of $135 million. About 90% of the budget is in special funds, which come primarily from lottery revenues. The budget bill includes fiscal 2026 deficiencies for personnel and lottery vendor costs, which are based on revenues. On page 2 of the analysis, Exhibit 1 shows the largest area of spending is for contracts for lottery tickets, equipment, and monitoring, and for slot machine monitoring at casinos. The 3 major contracts make up about 42% of the agency's budget, and then regular personnel account for about a third of the budget. On page 3, Exhibit 2 shows the proposed budget change. Personnel costs are the largest area of growth. These increase about $2.4 million for the agency's more than 350 state employees. The largest lottery operations contracts decrease by $696,000 after accounting for the fiscal 26 deficiencies. Key observations begin on page 5. The lottery revenues are pretty stable, but the proportion going to the general fund has decreased as state revenues are directed to other purposes. Exhibit 4 on page 6 shows distributions of state lottery revenues. In fiscal 2027, the general fund is expected to receive $472 million. MLGCA receives $107 million for its lottery operations program, and $87 million goes to the supplemental stadium financing, which supports debt service for the Orioles and Ravens stadium renovations. And then the rest of the state revenue is distributed to other purposes. Casino earnings are also pretty stable. There are departmental bills that I wanted to mention that would implement an audit's recommendation to allow state debts to be recovered from VLT prize winnings. These are Senate Bills 176 and House Bill 289. An update on sports wagering starts on page 9 of the analysis. Exhibit 7 shows the increase in state revenues following the legalization of sports betting, driven almost entirely by mobile betting. The first sports betting licenses issued in 2022 will be coming due for renewal in fiscal 2027, so a small increase in fee revenue for those licenses is expected. Until last year, all the state revenues from sports wagering and fantasy competitions went to the Blueprint Fund. The BRFA of 2025 increased the mobile sports wagering tax rate and directed the increase to the general fund. So in fiscal 26, the general fund is projected to receive $28 million and the Blueprint Fund $87 million from sports wagering taxes. Page 11 discusses illegal online gaming. The Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Commission has been sending cease and desist letters to companies that are operating online gaming platforms without state licenses. The commission has determined that these include prediction markets where people can trade contracts predicting the outcome of future sports events. So this includes Kalshi, Crypto.com, and Robinhood.com, and platforms like that. And OAG is representing the state in litigation regarding the legality of sporting events contracts. Key observation 4 summarizes a survey on gambling prevalence in Maryland that was conducted in 2024. This found an increase in sports betting following legalization. 11.5% of adults had used online or mobile sports betting in the past year of the survey, up from 3.4% in 2022. You can see the DLS recommendation on page 13. DLS recommends concurring with the governor's allowance. That concludes my presentation. I can take any questions you have.
Thank you so much. Any questions for our analyst? Delegate Tolles.
Chair, I just want clarification, and thank you for the opportunity to ask. On page 6, what is the difference between, I think I know the question to this. I think you said the facilities fund is for Ravens and Orioles. That's just, I know we were looking to do upgrades. And then the entertainment events, that's just, well, I won't speculate. Could you tell me what that is, please?
That is so those are both managed by the Maryland Stadium Authority, which manages a lot of this. To be honest with you, I don't know exactly what that is.
Okay, that's okay.
I can look it up while if the agency
fine.
may be able to answer that. I thought y'all can.
Okay, sounds good. And then I'm sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
Do you know if OAG, this may be a question I have to reach out to the Attorney General about, regarding the legal betting that you mentioned, do you know if there is a penalty, or is that something he's going to try to obtain if he was to be successful in his lawsuit? Will he try to retain, a fee that they would pay to the state, or what's what I'm looking for? As a settlement they will pay to the state. Is that part of it, or I can look it up as well?
That I don't know. That might also be something the agency
Okay.
can speak to, and if you have any further questions, we can certainly
No,
follow
that's,
up.
I say that because last year, when I was in judiciary, we gave some additional authority to the Attorney General to go after individuals that was doing some illegal work, but I can look it up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem. Welcoming Mr. Martin and team.
I will tell you, these chairs are much more comfortable than the ones back there. Just putting it out there. Good afternoon, Chair Smith and the members of the Education and Economic Development Subcommittee of the House Appropriations Committee. We welcome the opportunity to appear before you today to present the Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Agency's fiscal 2027 operating budget. For the record, my name is John Martin, and I am the Director of the Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Agency. With me today is Paula Yoakum, Chief Financial Officer, to my right. Also here today, Angela Jones, our Budget Director, and Craig Lindsay, Deputy Director and Chief Operating Officer. At this time, we'd like to thank the Department of Legislative Services, and particularly Elizabeth Weibel, for her excellent work and analysis of our budget. We'd also like to thank Aidan Keenan and the Department of Budget and Management for their assistance in developing the agency's budget. You have our written testimony that goes into greater detail, but let me begin by giving you an overview of our fiscal 2025 results and an update on fiscal 2026. Our agency contributed nearly $1.6 billion to support the state of Maryland's good causes, including but not limited to the Maryland Education Trust Fund, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future Fund, the state's general fund, as well as programs for public health and safety, the state's horse racing industry, the communities and jurisdictions where the state's 6 casinos are located, small minority women-owned business programs, and veterans organizations. Lottery ticket sales contributed over $667 million to the state, the 5th best total in the Maryland Lottery's 52-year history. Meanwhile, casino gaming revenue contributed over $831 million, an increase of more than $7 million from fiscal year 2024, and the 3rd best total in our casino program history. Sports wagering and fantasy competitions, including daily fantasy sports, combined to contribute over $90 million. The Maryland Lottery program has operated for over 50 years and enjoys broad participation across the state, as 78% of adult Marylanders report playing at least one lottery game in the past 12 months. Since its inception in 1973, traditional lottery sales have exceeded $65 billion and have contributed more than $20.7 billion in revenue to the state. Through the first half of fiscal 2026, we are ahead of fiscal 2025 in both sales, up 4.9%, and revenue to the state, up 7.9%. The mission of the casino gaming program is to generate revenue for the state of Maryland and to create good-paying jobs while maintaining integrity, security, transparency, and fair play. From the opening of Maryland's first casino in September 2010 through the end of fiscal 2025, slot machine and table game revenues generated by our 6 casinos totaled more than $19.8 billion. Casino gaming contributions to the state through fiscal 2025 in support of education totaled more than $6.4 billion. The distribution of casino gaming revenue is directed by statute. The casinos generated nearly $2 billion in gaming revenue from slot machines and table games during fiscal 2025, the 3rd best performance in the 15-year history of the program. Through the first half of fiscal 2026, casino revenue and contributions to the state are slightly down, less than 2%, in both categories. A United States Supreme Court decision in 2018 paved the way for states to legalize sports wagering. With voter approval on a referendum in November of 2020, Maryland joined a growing list of states implementing sports wagering at brick and mortar locations in December of 2021 and on mobile platforms in November of 2022. Currently, today, there are 11 retail sportsbook facilities and 12 mobile online sportsbooks operating in Maryland. Each sportsbook contributes 15% of its taxable win to the Blueprint for Maryland's Future Fund, which supports public education programs. In fiscal 2025, these contributions totaled $89 million. Effective July 1st, 2025, 15% of mobile taxable win is directed to the Blueprint for Maryland's Future Fund and 5% to the state's general fund. With the recent release of January's sports wagering results, we have surpassed last year's total and sit at $90 million, on pace to significantly increase contributions in fiscal 2026. The agency continues to significantly expand its organization-wide commitment to emphasizing the importance of responsible play across all lines of business. In fiscal 2025, the agency received our responsible gaming certification at the sustaining level awarded by the North American Association of State and Provincial Lotteries, NASPL, which is our industry trade association, and the National Council on Problem Gambling. Agency staff continue to collaborate with the University of Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling with regular meetings between the agency and the Center of Excellence staff to coordinate activities and training opportunities. The agency has also taken a position of leadership among 24 other gaming jurisdictions. We meet monthly to share best practices on impactful regulations across a variety of critical issues, including addressing challenges with the illegal gaming market. We are seeing progress on many fronts as we collaborate on areas of mutual concern. In conclusion, as it relates to the fiscal 2027 budget, we concur with the DLS recommended action and request your approval of our fiscal 2027 budget as submitted. Thank you for your time. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Martin, for your presentation. Are there any questions? Delegate Tolles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We can start with the one, I have a few questions. We can start with the question I asked the analyst. Could you go into detail about the difference, like in terms of what is covered under events? And I'm new to the committee, so I'm still learning.
No, that's okay. So just briefly, the majority of our allocations are distributed to the Maryland Stadium Authority, and the two that you had looked at, the Major Sports and Entertainment Fund, Events Fund, and the second one is the Sports and Entertainment Facilities Fund.
Sure.
They're two separate entities. The Major Sports is maxed out at $10 million every year, and as they use that money for smaller events, like they have different grants, then they put in requests to fulfill that up to the $10 million. The Sports and Entertainment Facilities Fund, that is a fund that is, it has debt associated with it, bond debt. I believe there's two series that we've done. That is all with regards to renovations to the minor league baseball throughout the state.
Okay, so let me ask you, thank you so much for that. I just want to ask you a little differently because I'm looking for a different answer. And so in terms of the major sport and entertainment events, it's generally being able to fund, to renovate or fund those events like at, let's just say Bowie Baseball Stadium, because you said minor league baseball.
Right, so the Major Sports is not that one. It's the Sports and Entertainment Facilities Fund. That's the higher dollar amount. So that's the one that we had debt service that was done for two different series of bonds where they did renovations for those different minor league baseball stadiums throughout the state of Maryland.
Okay, what was the Ravens and Orioles? I thought that was under that fund.
No, so the Supplemental Facilities Fund, the financing revenue, the top one, that's the Orioles and the Ravens. Right.
Okay.
There's a lot to go through.
Okay, no, that's fine, I'm following. And then, so what is what is the entertainment events? Let's focus on that. What is that?
So the major sports and entertainment one, is that the one?
Yeah, just say entertainment events.
Right, so, and again, we don't run that fund, just so you're aware, we just fund it. But it's, the max that it's allowed to have is $10 million, and it's used for smaller grants, right? So smaller events that they have. There are different things that can flow through there, but that's all under the stadium authority with regards to what they use it for. But as they use it, we then will fulfill it up to $10 million to make it whole, right? So that they always have $10 million that they're revolving through.
So when you say they, you mean the two stadiums?
The Maryland Stadium Authority.
Right.
The Maryland State, gotcha, okay. Yeah, I know, okay, because it has Maryland Stadium Authority revenue underneath that, and then it has the entertainment events.
Okay.
So that's what I was.
Okay, so the next one, the stadium, the next one is the stadium authority revenue. So that one is different. That is based on the financing fund, and that was done prior to the supplementals on the Oriole and the Ravens. And that will eventually go to zero, right? Because all the other funding is going to the supplementals for the Orioles and the Ravens.
These all have different life cycles, if you will, delegates. So depending on when they come in, some of them may have a shorter term or duration than another, which is why at any given point in time, there may be things that appear to be redundant, but they're very different.
Okay, we could talk more further in detail. I haven't met with you all yet. It'd be great to have a one-on-one. The next question, Madam Chair, is my notes all scrambled up. Could you tell me what is the casino overnight program?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
The casino overnight program. On page 4, it says that special fund spending which supports the lottery program and 58% of the casino overnight program increased by 1.4 million.
Page 4.
I could answer that. That's the casino oversight program, which manages the regulation for the agencies. Yeah, the regulation of the casinos.
Yeah. Do you want me to jump? And just to clarify, correct. So on the lottery side, we are the operators of that fund, right? It's a business. On the casino side, which is the VLT and the sports wagering and fantasy, we are the regulators. And so that oversight is the monitoring of all of those regulations with regards to those programs.
Okay, and then my final question is regarding the 295, on HB 295, I'm just doing like a cursory review, so I don't know if it captures it, but it says that it goes after the individual. Is there a way to, this is in reference to the illegal sports betting, is there a way to go after like a business if they like open, like say, you know how like you go into a site and you want, let's say you want to order some wine or something and it says, are you over 21? Is there a way to stop? I mean, is there like a firewall to get to that businesses like could say where you're not, this state does not allow for that, so we're not going to, you know, allow this betting to happen, where perhaps targeting a business, because it looks like it goes after the person for this particular legislation.
You are correct, Delegate, that we need to have some one-on-one time. Because I think there are going to be a number of bills that are in session now that impact a variety of illegal gaming options that do get to consumer protections, that do get to penalties for people who circumvent regulation, and is a way to redirect player activity back into regulated gaming in the state. So yeah, there's a whole series of legislation, some of it from the Lottery and Gaming Agency, some of it from other participants but it would probably help to give you some clarity on that, and we can schedule some time with your staff.
That'll be great. And then could we also, so that I won't take up too much time here, I would be totally remiss if I did not ask for an update on the Blue Line Corridor and the Prince George's County Local Impact Grants and what's happening there. So we can schedule that.
Well, again, I'll let Paula weigh in on that. Again, we fund these programs. We don't distribute the funds.
No, I understand. I just wanted to know about your agency and funding the programs. It says it here. Like I said, I'm new, so I just want to kind of hear from your side and then I'm just in a learning phase.
Sure. Well, again, by statute, we fund a variety of programs. And Ms. Weibel, feel free if you have something to add to that. But that's our responsibility. And then they're dispersed to the various needs based on those local community grants.
Okay.
Yeah, I can follow up with you and find out who is actually responsible for distributing those and get a program update on that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I clarify too? So the Blue Line is payable to the Maryland Department of Transportation, and they are the ones that distribute it to the local jurisdiction. So there's currently some bond action that we're involved in with some, like a Montgomery County, for example. And so those are things that we will help them do that bond as it happens. But this goes to Maryland Department of Transportation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem. And just my one last question is regarding the personnel deficiencies. I wanted to get a better handle on how they came about. I saw there was a mentioning that there was some anticipated vacancy savings that didn't happen. So that's one of those situations where you're like, I was trying to do that, and then now we have deficiencies because, you actually were more successful, hiring. So I wanted to get a better sense of that.
Sure. You want me to take that? Okay, so there were two programs that we had introduced in the state, the VSP program, right? And then also just vacancies in general to look at those and to reduce. So the reductions that we made as an agency were not sufficient enough to cover that. So that's where that deficiency came into play.
Well, there are no public witnesses. So without any additional questions, that concludes the budget hearing for the Maryland State Lottery and Gaming Control.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we're moving on to why everyone is here. Maryland Technology Development Corporation, or TEDCO, and again, Elizabeth Weibel.
Thank you. I'll be presenting the DLS analysis for TEDCO. The fiscal 27 budget decreases $1.4 million to $52 million total. All of that decrease is in general funds. Most of the programs in TEDCO are level funded, although there are a few areas of increase that I'll discuss. On page 2, Exhibit 1 shows an overview of the fiscal 2027 allowance. The Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund receives $15.5 million, which is level with fiscal 2026 funding. Several of the social impact funds within TEDCO receive $13 million and make up 25% of the allowance. These include the Pre-Seed Builder Fund, the Inclusion Fund, and the Equitech Growth Fund. The Pre-Seed Builder Fund receives $7.5 million in special funds from the Small Minority and Women-Owned Business account. The BRFA of 2025 allowed the use of these funds for fiscal 2026 through 2028 due to SMWOBA having an outstanding fund balance. The TEDCO investment funds I'd like to discuss a little bit more. These are the ability to make investments in companies is a key capability of TEDCO. In addition to the Pre-Seed Builder Fund, TEDCO also operates the Maryland Innovation Initiative, the GAP Investment Fund, the Cybersecurity Investment Fund, and several others. The key observations section on page 7 has a little bit more about these funds and some of the metrics that TEDCO tracks for the companies that it has invested in. Exhibit 4 on page 8 shows some of the larger investment funds divided up by what stage of a company's life cycle they target, whether that's very early stage startups, pre-seed investment, or venture fund for more established but still growing companies. TEDCO tracks their annual cash returns, but also the number of employees and the amount of outside follow-on funding the companies attract. The follow-on funding in particular is a measure of sort of how promising the other funds or other investors find the companies. I'll go back to the budget discussion on page 3 about the Equitech Growth Fund. This is one of TEDCO's social impact funds. It was established in fiscal 2024 and received $3 million in that year. Since then, it has received an annual mandated appropriation of $5 million. It has the capability to make grants, investments, and loans, and so far it has made 2 rounds of grants for infrastructure and workforce development projects. The most recent awards were made in October. Exhibit 2 on page 3 shows an overview of those awards. The focus on tech infrastructure and workforce and providing grants for companies working on those issues overlaps with several other state economic development initiatives, including in commerce, the Build Our Future grant program, the Infrastructure 4.0 program, or Maryland Manufacturing 4.0, and as well as some Maryland labor programs. So DLS recommends reducing funding from $5 million to $3 million in 2027 due to the state's fiscal condition and the fund's programmatic overlap with some other state programs. There's also a BRFA recommendation to reduce the mandated funding for this fund going forward. The Maryland Innovation Initiative is discussed on pages 4 through 5. This makes primarily investments in companies that are formed at certain higher education institutions. It receives $6.3 million in an allowance. There is a decrease due to the end of the Baltimore Innovation Initiative pilot program, which received $1.5 million in 2026 and has since concluded. There's also an increase due to the MII Institution Partnership Extension Program, which was established by Chapter 217 of 2025. This opens up the program to any eligible higher education institution. Chapter 217 authorized the governor to include $250,000 for the program in each of fiscal 27 and 28. The allowance includes $1 million for the program, which is higher than the recommendation or the authorization. So DLS just recommends reducing that funding to $250,000 as authorized in Chapter 217. On page 5, there's an update on the Human Relevant Research Fund. This is a grant and loan program that was established to support research into alternatives to animal testing. This program hasn't really started up yet. The Maryland Department of Health collects fees from institutions that conduct animal research. They've sort of been through, I think, one year worth of collecting these fees and have since transferred those fees to TEDCO. The 2027 allowance for the program includes $915,000, which is based on an amount that was projected to be collected annually when the legislation was developed. However, MDH has encountered some difficulties in collecting the fees, and federal research institutions have declined to contribute fees. So only $185,000 has been collected so far. So the actual spending on that program is going to be lower than what is in the budget. When this program was established, the initial estimate that TEDCO provided for administrative cost was $180,000, which includes funding to contract an independent scientific review board as required in the statute. That would pretty much wipe out all of the funding that has been collected. So TEDCO is revising its plans in light of the actual available funding. Doesn't have an updated estimate for administrative costs at this time, but anticipates that the first RFP for that program will be issued this summer. And then finally, the Baltimore Tech Hub Consortium receives a $500,000 grant in the allowance. By way of background, in 2023, the U.S. Department of Commerce designated Baltimore as one of 31 inaugural tech hubs with a potential for rapid growth. And the consortium received $1 million in each of fiscal 25 and 26 to support the consortium's application for phase 2 federal funding. The consortium was not selected for that round of funding or for 2 later rounds of funding in 2025. Future federal funding availability is expected. However, the details and timing of that funding are uncertain. And due to the uncertain outlook for federal funding and the state's fiscal condition, DLS recommends deleting funds for this grant. You'll see the DLS recommendations on page 9. That concludes my presentation, and I can take any questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions for the analyst? Seeing none, thank you. Come forth, our TEDCO team. Troy, Stovall, and others.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, thank you as always allowing us to come and present to you what we're doing, the great work we're doing at TEDCO. My name is Troy Lamel Stovall. I serve as the CEO of TEDCO, and even though my title is CEO, I'm really view myself as a servant to the amazing team that we have here. And I'd like to take a moment, Madam Chair, to allow my team to stand. If they could stand, and just so the folks can see the great folks that we have at what we call them One TEDCO. And you also have a number of individuals who are going to be speaking and have written. I think that speaks to the extent of that we're making, the impact that we're making in the ecosystem. To our DLS analysts, we thank you as always. I've now done this for a number of years. I'm into Madam Chair, my 5.5-year mark, so I've done a number of these, and I can say almost all of them I've always agreed with the DLS analysis, but this year, respectfully, we're going to disagree with those three recommendations. And allow me, my comments will be focused on the DLS recommendations, and allow my other colleagues to tell you about some of the impact that they're doing and some of the things that we're doing. So in a little bit different order than what was given. So let me start, if I may, with the Tech Hub, the GBC Tech Hub. GBC, the Greater Baltimore Committee, led by our good friend Mark Thomas, is doing a great job. And I think what sometimes gets missed in, yes, the outcome driven of that they applied and did not get named in these 2 rounds, I think what gets missed in that is the collaboration of what you've heard me use the word stitching, bringing together the ecosystem in a way that in my time I've not seen happen in the Baltimore region, and frankly just for the state. And so I think, not having that funding will help, will minimize that stitching that is happening and that scaling that is happening in the Baltimore region. And so obviously we do disagree with that. The second one is you'll hear more about our Maryland Innovation Initiative, or MII, which does a tremendous job in taking technologies and taking great research that happens at our 5 research institutions and bringing them to the marketplace. And you'll hear about the work that they've done in expanding beyond those 5 research institutions. Last year, this body, the House and the Senate, passed the extension bill that was mentioned that said, yes, this is a great idea, and there is innovation and entrepreneurship that exists at every single university and college and community college in the state of Maryland, and we should be trying to stimulate that. Absolutely, we agree with that, but it came with no funding. The governor did allow for $1 million of funding for that, and we believe that that actually should be maintained in order for us to begin. $250,000 won't even begin to allow us to touch all the institutions in the state. But let me close with the remarks about the Equitech Fund. And remember, it's called the Equitech Growth Fund. And I know our analysts use the word overlap. And I would argue to you that it's not overlap, because remember what TEDCO focuses on is building that infrastructure, building the infrastructure for that early stage innovation and entrepreneur ecosystem. There is no one else. All due respect to our friends, and we collaborate, and I'd say we collaborate and integrate very well with our friends at Commerce and the Department of Labor, but there is no one else, and it is our charge, and our charge solely for that early stage technology and innovation ecosystem. And when you look at what the Equitech Growth Fund has done in those 2 allocations that were mentioned, that's exactly what we've done. And I just got some great stats here that we've trained more than 2,500 Marylanders to entry and mid-level jobs. We've supported over 750 STEM jobs. We've advanced more than 15 startups in product development and commercials, and created over 400 direct jobs. Those are the things that you've tasked us to do, and we are doing. And so to move those dollars from 5 to 3 and then 3 in the out years will stimulate. Just to also give you one last data point, the first year, we had an overabundance of applications. Even this last year, we had over 90 applications for $41 million. We only had about $4 million to award. And there was another, I understand, $7 to $10 million we could have awarded if we'd had the funds. So what really makes the Equitech Growth Fund great is, yes, that we're touching that early stage tech and life science, but one of the requirements that has to come together, Madam Chair and committee members, is that you have to come with a partner. You have to come with someone else from another part of the state or another part of the ecosystem. And so part of the judging criteria we have is looking at those partnerships, looking at going into communities that have been underinvested and underserved, and making sure that those things are being served. Again, TEDCO is your entity that does those things into that early stage tech and life science. So to the due respect to DLS, there is not overlap. This is elevating and escalating a part of the ecosystem that is not being served effectively right now. So with that, I want to introduce by our Maryland Innovation Executive Director, who will talk about the Maryland Innovation Initiative, and I think he also has a guest as well. And obviously, I'll take any questions as well.
Great, thank you, Troy. My name is Abhishek, or Abhi Kulshrestha. I'm the Executive Director for the Maryland Innovation Initiative. By brief way of background, the Maryland Innovation Initiative was started in 2012 as a collaboration between the state of Maryland and 5 research institutions: Morgan State, from whom you heard earlier today, Johns Hopkins, the University of Maryland, Baltimore, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and University of Maryland, College Park. Over the last 14 years of our existence, we have awarded over $65 million in both grants and investments to technologies that are developed at Maryland's leading institutions of higher education. That $65 million in award has drawn over $830 million in follow-on funding to the state, 2/3 of that in private capital. We've also generated over 400 sustained jobs and supported the launch of over 200 startups over the course of our history. And while we are immensely proud of our economic impact, we are as proud, if not more so, of the impact that our technologies have on the state and the nation. This year, a company that was funded by the Maryland Innovation Initiative in 2017 is delivering the first J-1 jet propulsion units to the United States Air Force. That company is based in Baltimore today, supporting the American warfighter. And it will play a vital role in our national defense, particularly in a quickly changing world. Another company that we funded in 2017, Scene Health, was instrumental to the state of Maryland's COVID response in 2020 and became not only the standard of care for rural telehealth in the state of Maryland, but also in 30 other states. To be sure, these things may have happened anywhere. There are a lot of great technologists and scientists throughout the United States, but the Maryland Innovation Initiative ensured that those ideas were conceived, translated, reduced to practice, and ultimately commercialized here so that they could create jobs and investment in Maryland. We have 2 priorities this year that pertain to the state's economic growth. The first is better aligning Maryland's nationally distinctive research base to the needs of industry. States that have seen substantial success in attracting industry partners to reside within their boundaries know that it's not just economic development incentives. There are major technology problems to be solved when it comes to advanced manufacturing and digital health and all sorts of fields. We are uniquely poised to solve those. And we believe that Maryland and its higher institutions of higher education can play a central role in doing that if we can better align our research to the needs of our industrial base. The second priority is the expansion of the Maryland Innovation Initiative throughout the state of Maryland. We've had the opportunity, because of funding from this body over the last 4 years, to pilot programs at Frostburg State, Bowie State, as well as every single public and private college, university, and community college in the Baltimore metropolitan area. Recognizing the learnings and success from those pilot programs, we worked with this body last year to pass the Maryland Innovation Initiative Partnership Extension Program, which would expand the eligibility for the Maryland Innovation Initiative to any nonprofit or public institution of higher education within the state of Maryland. And although that legislation last year didn't come with funding, we seized the mantle and have been visiting community colleges, comprehensive colleges, emerging research institutions throughout the state of Maryland to understand what they're doing today and how the Maryland Innovation Initiative can complement those programs.
I just want to interrupt you quickly.
Oh, please.
I don't know if you know that Delegate Jeff Grice is the new co-chair of the new Rural Caucus. So if you have any rural stuff, rural business initiative, just lift it up.
I think we do a little bit, and I'm sure our colleagues will have more, but I think our work in Frostburg really does pertain to a lot of the needs in Western Maryland. Next month, we're on deck to visit our friends at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore and at Salisbury to understand how technology is being developed there in agricultural engineering, aquaculture, autonomous aviation can be leveraged ultimately to the success of local economies as well as our military bases on the Eastern Shore as well. So with that, and again, just returning to the note on the broader impact of our technologies, I would like to turn it over to Ms. Rose Wong, who is the CEO of one of our portfolio companies, 1104 Health. to talk a little bit more about the impact of Maryland Innovation.
Before we do that, I want to address this rural piece. Through some funding that we received, actually just a few weeks ago, we announced the Western Maryland Entrepreneur in Residence effort. We basically virtual created a bunch of individuals who are going to provide a series of resources there in Western Maryland, and our plan is to replicate that in other parts of the state.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman and members of the committee. My name is Rose Wong. I am the founder and CEO of a health tech startup called 1104 Health. I started the company, I'll just tell you a little story why I started the company. I'm a serial technology entrepreneur. I've had 4 companies, all in tech, and have a couple of exits successfully. But my husband, Army veteran, was diagnosed with advanced cancer in 2019. So he passed on November 4th on 2019. It was a 9-month journey. During that journey, that's when we learned that he missed a big opportunity at diagnosis for a pivotal phase 3 clinical trial that later became standard of care for his diagnosis. And we experienced lots of fragmented care. Those 2 problems after he passed drove me to start 1104 Health to solve for the problem of democratizing access to clinical trials as treatment options and advanced, newly approved medicines. So 1104 Health was born with a platform, building a digital oncology network that connects academic researchers and community oncologists who see 85% of cancer patients all over communities, including rural areas, that they have asymmetry of resources. One has expertise and resources, the other one has patients and need access. So we connect them through this AI-powered platform and this with an innovative business model to democratize access to clinical trials and advanced medicines. Since MII funded us last year, we licensed technology from Johns Hopkins University. We started the company, we launched the product, and in 9 months, nearly 50% of all oncologists in Maryland are now actively engaged with our platform. We have helped over 100 patients in Maryland alone, covering 13 counties. 30% of those patients are in underserved zip codes, including rural areas. That's Eastern Shore, Southern Maryland, Western Maryland counties. So we're very proud of this impact. In fact, we're ahead of our projected schedule to expand nationally. As of last week, we have now 1,600 oncologists nationally active in our network. That's about 10% of the entire oncologist workforce. In terms of economic impact that this has created for us, this investment MII made, not only we more than doubled our own workforce from 4 to 9 people, 6 of whom are Maryland-based. In fact, probably the most important hire we made was Dr. Kash Ferozvi. He's our chief medical officer. He had to go back to his clinic this afternoon, couldn't stay. But there's also a lot of indirect economic impact. Because the way our platform works, we're now bringing trials and advanced medicines to patients near their home, near where they live. So instead of patients only seeking trials, driving 1 hour, 2 hours each way, and parking situations, taking a day off from work or sometimes with a family member, they can now seek similar kind of quality care at home by their oncologist. So the economic production, we haven't done that calculation, is, I think it's great only because the patient outcomes also are greatly improved. So I'm really appreciate this opportunity to testify. I think MII and TEDCO's funding should be upheld and doing a great job for the tech community.
Now I'm going to turn it over to Rashika with the Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund.
Thank you. Honorable Madam Chair Smith, Vice Chair, and delegates. I'm Ruchika Nijhara, and I serve as the Executive Director of Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund. I've been in this country from India, moved 25 years ago, and I have been in Maryland since then. Because as a scientist, I know this state, you guys prioritize research, and you prioritize turning that research into real medicines and real companies. And I was told that I say too much, I get too much passionate, and I go very long, so I have a script today that I'm going to read from, so that I'm going to be on time. I'm not going to name who. And this is not one person. It has many people have said that, so that's why. So with that mission that, research is important, and getting those real medicines to patients is important, and having these real companies get started and grow in Maryland is important. This is what the mission MSCRF has, Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund has, and this is what you task us to do. And we are fulfilling this mission using our model, which is to support every stage of technology development through early discovery, to translation, to commercialization, and now manufacturing, when we started our manufacturing program in 2023. And this is what distinguishes us from the programs that exist. We want to ensure, and we are ensuring, that breakthroughs not only just get discovered here in Maryland, but they get developed, they get scaled, and they get produced here in Maryland. In 20 years of our existence, MSCRF has not only functioned as a scientific catalyst, but also as an economic engine for the state. We've supported more than 700 competitively reviewed research projects, generating intellectual property, launching university spin-offs, and accelerating discoveries. At the same time, MSCRF has strengthened and continues to strengthen Maryland's workforce and economy. The fund supports scientists, clinicians, students, postdoctoral fellows across institutions and companies across the state. Approximately 60% of postdocs that we have funded are still in Maryland, continuing to find jobs or be in positions guiding companies and advancing the field. We have supported, as of 2024, when we did our economic impact study, 2,000 jobs, or over 2,000 jobs in Maryland. From the economic standpoint of view, we've generated $525 million in economic activity, $200 million in labor income. And if you ask me, in terms of the companies, we had invested $13 million in companies when they first got a grant. And those companies have raised $1 billion in private capital. And that is for everyone's dollar that state has invested, 79x return. And not only that, 89% of our companies remain active and operating in Maryland. Our companies stay in the state, grow here, create jobs here, and that is a direct reflection of the rigorous scientific and commercial review process that's to select strong and sustainable businesses. Our companies have been here and they're growing here. And that's a very key highlight I wanted to bring to your attention. Our manufacturing grants, which we started this program in 2023, are already strengthening the state's position in advanced manufacturing. And not only that, they're attracting global companies. Last November, Nature Cell, a Korean company, it's a public company worth $1 billion, decided to come to Maryland and set up their facility, a manufacturing stem cell facility in Baltimore, with the expectation of creating 500 jobs here. They just had their groundbreaking this week, and one of the major factors they decided that they chose Maryland was because of MSCRF. Just to talk about some of our manufacturing grant awardees, ReproCell in Prince George's County, they have GMP grade, which is the clinical grade set up for setting up or producing these stem cell products. They have gained international reputation. They get most of the revenues from out of state, and they're bringing collaborations with the universities here because they want to expand and help the university researchers to produce clinical grade materials for these stem cell products to get to patients. Reprocel, a Frederick-based company who also received our manufacturing grant, but they has also previously received our commercialization grant. There were 5 people when they got our grant in 2013, and now there are 57 people, generating $80 million in revenues. Again, have international reputation, bless you. And they are just amazingly expanding their footprint as well. They started with 500 square foot area, and now they are close to 19,000 square foot. There are therapeutic companies that we funded through a manufacturing grant, and that have enabled those companies to cut down the commercialization timelines for their products, because now they are manufacturing their own product here in the state and consolidating their R&D, speeding up the so that these products reach actually to the patients, and they are reaching to the patients. And as I said, behind every economic metric that I'm presenting to you today, there's a patient. MSCRF has supported across 200 different disease categories where therapies are coming, either they're coming closer to the patients or they have already reached patients. And you'll hear from Dr. Brodsky today, who will tell you about how the innovation he developed here at Johns Hopkins is making an economic impact as well as public impact. And also, we have his patient here today who got cured because of that innovation. I would say, as our ecosystem is expanding in Maryland, our demand for our MSCRF funding has exceeded our annual appropriation. With increasing federal funding uncertainty and other states increasingly providing incentives in this field, which is growing and showing its potential, maintaining momentum is critical. Your investment in MSCRF not only strengthens Maryland economy, not only attracts private capital, not only builds company here, but most importantly, they save life. So on behalf of the patients who are waiting for the treatments, on behalf of the innovators who are advancing their ideas, and on behalf of the companies who are building Maryland's future, I want to sincerely thank you for your leadership and continued support. And I want to now...
Would it be possible for there to be a swap so that they can sit closer to the mics and also be more visible to us, the next 2 witnesses?
I can.
Sorry to kick you to the curb, guys, but we just want to make sure that we can hear and see them. Thank you so much.
See you.
That better.
Hi there. Good afternoon. I'm Robert Brodsky, and I am the Johns Hopkins Family Professor of Medicine and Oncology, the Director of Hematology, and the past President of the American Society of Hematology. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sickle cell disease and how curable this disease is now. Sickle cell disease affects about 5,000 to 6,000 Marylanders. The most severe forms of the disease affect about 10%, or 500 to 600 patients in the state, and those 500 to 600 patients each cost the medical system about $200,000 a year. This is a curable disease now. It was known to be cured with bone marrow transplant back in the 1980s. The problem was it wasn't available because you had to have a perfectly matched brother or sister. You needed to use what we call myeloablative, very high-dose chemotherapy, and it just wasn't widely available. Johns Hopkins has made enormous progress in bone marrow transplant. We can now do what are called half-match bone marrow transplants. What that means is every parent, every child is a match. Every half-sibling or sibling has a 50% chance of being a half-match, and we've been able to use cousins, nieces, nephews, even grandparents as donors for bone marrow transplant. We've also been able to use much reduced conditioning, much less chemotherapy, such that this is largely an outpatient procedure. The cure rate of sickle cell disease now is approaching 95%, and well over 90% of our patients are eligible, because the average person in this room has four and a half half-matched donors. So we can always find a donor now. This is huge. Now, we did the first half-match bone marrow transplant to cure a sickle cell patient in 2007. We reported our first clinical trial in 2012, and then we applied for funding to the National Institute of Health for this, who thought it was a little bit out there. Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund didn't. They picked this up in 2013 and funded us. And let me tell you, we wouldn't be here today without them. That grant was critical. And after the results were published, and what the NIH came to us, they wanted a grant. That grant did a clinical trial at 30 centers across the United States, confirmed the results, and was recently published in the New England Journal of Medicine last year, confirming our results and confirming that it can be done elsewhere. Now, a lot of you have probably heard about gene therapy and genome editing. Well, the cost of one patient for gene therapy and genome editing is about $3 million. Those 500 to 600 sickest patients in the state of Maryland aren't eligible because they have to use myeloablative conditioning. And patients who are eligible and who get gene therapy and gene editing are 100% infertile. The half-match approach, the cost is about $280,000 and is largely outpatient. We can do 10 for the cost of one, and the majority of our patients retain fertility. Plus, the cure rate is higher. 30% of the patients that go on to a gene therapy protocol never get the product because you can't collect enough cells. They only report in the journals the people that got the cells. So, yes, gene therapy is making progress. I started my field in this, but this is way ahead. And we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund. And let me just say where this can go, because we are working with our colleagues at the University of Maryland. They are getting ready to do their first. We've given them our protocol. But we can reduce the number of patients with severe sickle cell in this state by over 70-75%, probably within 4 to 5 years, if we got the funding to gear this up. I mean, Maryland can lead the nation in eradicating sickle cell disease. It's possible right now. And I'm going to turn it over to an amazing young woman, Tatiana Thompson, who how long ago had this transplant?
It will be 2 years in July.
Okay.
Okay, hello, my name is Tatiana, and I have been cured from sickle cell, but I probably would not be here today if it wasn't for his transplant and the research that they have funded. It was a long journey getting here. Sorry, I get emotional talking about it, but I have been hospitalized before the transplant over 50 times in 1 year. I missed my son being able to walk, crawl, first words, because I was always in the hospital. One day in the hospital, I asked them, I said, I need something to be done. Like, this just isn't working for me. It was to the point where it was like suicidal at this point. So they put me in contact with Dr. Brodsky, and he changed my life, and I will be forever grateful for this research. And I want it out there because people can be cured from this disease. And I was literally talking to someone like 3 days ago, and they said, I didn't know you can be cured from sickle cell. And this was a doctor that's telling me this. And I'm like, yeah, yes, the research is there, but we need the money to get it out there to people everywhere in Maryland, hopefully. But yeah, that's all I had to say. My life has been really turned around from this. I can travel now and not being able, like, literally traveling before, I will end up in the hospital, no matter what, because that's just how my body reacted. But I can travel, I can watch my son grow up, I can do all the things that I couldn't do 2 years ago. So I'm grateful for this.
So we're really thrilled for you and your family and friends that you get to live a whole new life. And thank you, Dr. Brodsky. And I'm sure there's a team of people that you couldn't bring here that helped you to innovate this research. And it's interesting because some of you were just looking at me because we had a bill hearing about essentially ensuring that colleges were more aware of the needs of students that do have sickle cell, because it can be almost an invisible, problem for some folks, and just ensuring that they had appropriate sensitivities and supports built in. So we could do more than one thing. We could help people get cured of it, but also while they're, living with it, be fully respected and supported, as they pursue higher education.
Yeah. If I may,
are there
Madam
any-
Chair.
Yes, sir.
Tatiana, so your story, and many folks at TECO know this, and so apologies if I get a little emotional myself. So my sister passed away from sickle cell years ago. And everything you said, my sister and I were born a year and a day apart. Yet, because of her hospital stay, she became 2 grade levels behind me. So I know exactly, my family knows exactly. So I'm so proud to be a part of an organization, Madam Chair, that has playing a role in something that has attracted me impact personally. Thank you.
I'm so glad that you shared that.
Yeah.
And I also feel like you didn't know it, but you were put on a path to honor her legacy, even if you didn't know it was going to happen that way. So I'm glad that you could be a part of TEDCO's leadership as well. Are there any questions for this panel before we hear from the broader public? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is powerful information. Is Hillary Vernon here? Hillary Vernon? Yaji Lang, or Lang? Giselle Gonzalez? Did you all sign up to give testimony?
I'm sorry, that was a mistake.
Oh, so everyone who's supposed to speak, has everyone who's supposed to speak spoken?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to rob anyone of their opportunity. All right, thank you. That appears to conclude the budget hearing for TEDCO and all budget hearings for today.